What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
7 hectoseconds. Chapter 148. Kakashi is very interested in the art called liberalization that Iruka said. It is clear that he should take the initiative to leave on this occasion, but he stood there and listened, not knowing whether he didn't know the rules or deliberately. For it. Iruka doesn't care much about this. Anyway, he can trust Kakashi, and there is nothing to avoid, but I don't know if Kakashi's life is bad. Just when the topic was about to go on, the call of the old man of third generation suddenly came not far away. It seems that there is something urgent for him. In the end, Kakashi could only sigh helplessly, and walk towards the third generation old man rather decadently. Ms. Iruka, Lei also belongs to the elemental school. Can I also master the skill? Sasuke looked at Iruka with hope, and from the effect of the technique, he could easily judge that the value of freedom is not ordinary. Not to mention, the fact that he can ignore most physical attacks is enough to classify it as S level. If you can learn it, your strength can definitely be improved qualitatively. Yes, but not now. Iruka said with regret, then explained in the puzzled eyes of Sasuke and Naruto. Freedom is not so easy to learn. Sasuke, I know you have a strong ability to understand thinking, and you can even draw inferences about it, but can you learn freely? The most critical part of transformation is not talent, but reading. Oh, no, it's chakra volume. Iruka almost talked about the supernatural powers of the previous life, but fortunately Sasuke didn't care about these, but asked a little frustratedly, in other words, can't I learn how to make my current chakra freely? Yes, according to the standard of chakra quantity, only Naruto can learn now. If you forcibly learn it, it is possible that because of insufficient chakra quantity, it will not be able to reversely transform back to the physical state and completely turn into a natural element. Hearing this, Sasuke finally gave up completely. At this time, Naruto, who knew nothing about the conversation between the two and only understood the words that only he could learn, suddenly laughed with a beating face, and said proudly. Have you heard, Sasuke, only I can learn, ha ha ha. Sure enough, I am the best. Sasuke, who was in a bad mood because he couldn't learn to be comfortable, immediately curled his lips when he heard Naruto's words, and looked at him with disdain. I admit that chakra is indeed inferior to you in terms of weight and physical fitness, but in terms of ninjutsu and ability. I am better than you in many aspects such as utilization, speed, strength, and reaction speed. Before Sasuke finished speaking, Naruto, who had a rare chance to show his superiority, interrupted with a foul face. But only I can learn that very powerful technique, only me. Seeing Naruto's triumphant appearance, not only Sasuke was upset, but even Iruka couldn't stand it anymore. Don't be too happy, Naruto, although the key to learning freely is the chakra volume. After learning, the master levels such as the activation speed, duration, activation interval, and use timing of the technique must be continuously strengthened. Yes, to be honest, even if you can study ahead of time, with Sasuke's qualifications, it will probably not take long for you to catch up with your master level after learning to be free. Quote. The so-called pride is only 3 seconds, which is probably to describe the current Naruto. Iruka's words are like a plate of cold water splashed on Naruto's face, making his proud expression instantly solidify, and Sasuke on the side makes a meaningful hum. I will let you run at once. No matter how far you are on the starting line, I can catch up immediately and let you feel the gap of true despair. Hearing that, Naruto suddenly clenched his fist, then looked at Sasuke with great momentum. Who wouldn't speak big words? Wait and see, I will definitely prove to Mr. Iruka that my strength is definitely not worse than yours. I will definitely learn better than you when it comes to self-sufficiency. Seeing the two men wanting to go out to fight a rivalry, Iruka shrugged, without any intention of discouraging it. Advertisement. After all, there is competition to make progress. Of course, the reason Naruto can become second only to Sasuke and a level better than the other 7 is mainly because Sasuke regards him as the only opponent's excitement, but Sasuke can become so strong. There is no reason why Naruto is pressing hard. At this moment, out of the corner of Iruka's eyes, he suddenly noticed 2 names appearing on the electronic display board. Yamanaka Ino vs Yakushi Kabuto. The next moment, he saw Ino jump straight downstairs with joy, and her opponent, with long white hair tied into a ponytail, wearing a pair of round glasses, just like the big brother next door. The young man walked down the stairs gracefully. From the appearance, it seems that he is an old and harmless person, but the essence of a ninja is deception, and appearance can never be used as a benchmark for judging a ninja. When Iruka turned on the force field perception and sensed the fluctuations in the force field on Kabuto's body, the corner of his mouth suddenly rose, revealing an interesting smile. Jonin's strength field fluctuates, but he pretends to be an ordinary genin. This guy is very interesting. Under the force field perception, hiding power is meaningless, but spies will naturally be handled by professionals, so Iruka just cared a little bit and didn't bother to think about the suspiciousness of Kabuto. Raising his hand, forming a simple seal, and at the same time extracting chakra, the ability was activated instantly, and with Iruka's movements, Kabuto opposed Kabuto on the field, and Ino, who was waiting for the moonlight gust to issue a start command, suddenly sounded in Ino's mind. The sound of Ino, your luck is good. The opponent is not easy. Just use him to test whether your strength has grown in the 4 months since graduation. Give you 3 minutes to expose his true strength while winning the game. Oh. By the way, I will let Sasuke watch your game seriously. If you don't want Sasuke and me to disappoint you, let's show our skills and let us see your strength. Hearing this, Ino was stunned, and turned his head subconsciously, just in time to see Sasuke's gaze coming over. The next moment, her girl's heart instantly reached the boiling point because of the gaze of the person she liked, her body was full of strength, and her aura suddenly rising. The fourth round, Yamanaka Ino vs. Yakushi Kabuto, start. After Moonlight Hayate finished speaking, he quickly stepped aside, leaving behind the two competing in the field. Ino did not rush to do it, but took a lot of time to look at Yakushi Kabuto with a kind smile on his face not far away, and said meaningfully, I didn't expect to meet you in the qualifiers, suspicious Kabuto Sr. Quote. I don't need Iruka's reminder at all. Sasuke and Shikamaru pointed out that Kabuto was suspicious in the first test. Naturally, Ino would not have any good feelings for him, but she was just a genin. There was no need to care about spies, so in the second test. During the exam, she didn't embarrass Kabuto's group, but now that Mr. Iruka has confessed, then she can't turn a blind eye to it. Haha, my identity is innocent, but you have misunderstood and regarded my kindness as malicious. Ino curled her mouth and was too lazy to talk nonsense. She saw her step back hard, and quickly backed up a few steps, and then gathered the already refined chakra in her hands, and suddenly pressed it to the ground. The spiritual realm swiftly revolved, and the ability was instantly activated. Secret, mimicry clone. Click. Following Ino's movement, the floor around Kabuto suddenly trembles violently, and then the six paths humanoid object slowly emerges from the ground, gradually transforming into Ino's appearance, and then Ino's hands are quickly sealed, and she combines family secrets. Ninjutsu, which was specially developed to cooperate with abilities, was launched instantly. Ninfa, heart-turned clone technique. 6 invisible fluctuations were released from Ino, and quickly flew towards the 6 mimicry clones created with abilities. When Ino's thoughts completely fell on the mimicry clones, the original stiff expression of the mimicry clones suddenly became agile. At the same time, as if he were a real person, he showed an unkind look at Kabuto who was surrounded in the middle. Chapter 149 Mimic Doppelganger. Hey, isn't it a physical clone? And there are only 6 clones. If I am, I can easily separate a dozen shadow clones. Why does Ino look like AA? Idiot, what are you talking about? Sasuke, do you want to fight? Iruka sighed, and then suddenly reached out and put his hand on Naruto's head, asking him to look at the ground below, and at the same time explained helplessly. The so-called mimic clone is a clone composed entirely of the substance that exists in itself, rather than a substance transformed by chakra. Therefore, unless the clone is smashed to the point that there is no residue left, no matter what attack, the mimic clone will not disappear. That's why, in terms of quality, the mimicry clones do not know how many times stronger than the physical clones like Shadow Clone that disappear as long as they are attacked to a certain degree. As soon as the voice fell, as if to confirm Iruka's words, Kabuto suddenly threw 3 kunai, shooting at the mimicry clone in 3 directions. Upon seeing this, the mimicry clone with Ino consciousness suddenly raised the corner of his mouth, letting him not avoid it. Kuwu directly stabbed him. The strength is so small, Kabuto-senpai, are you really not going to get serious? Ding ding. When the mimicry clone was pulled out, Kuwu was still on the ground, and the stabbed place quickly returned to its original state after Kuwu was pulled out. Remind you, if you don't get serious anymore. The body's Ino stood far away, clasping his chest with both hands and looking at Kabuto, who was surrounded by the mimicry clone in the middle, with a ridiculous expression on his face. It will die. At the end of the story, the 6 mimicry clones acted at the same time, and the speed was actually comparable to the speed at which Shino could easily solve Sack before, and even slightly faster. So fast. Kabuto only had time to exclaim. The fist of the closest mimic clone had swept over him. Genin couldn't handle this speed, but Kabuto raised his palm when his fist was about to hit his glasses. Block it with a sound. However, pouch. What? Kabuto screamed suddenly with the sound of the sharp blade piercing into the flesh, then his eyes condensed, and he pulled back his bloody right hand for some reason, and quickly moved back. Why did that suspicious guy suddenly hurt his hand? Did Ino hide his weapon in his fist? Naruto looked at Kabuto in embarrassment to avoid the mimicry attack, but did not dare to use his body to resist his seemingly soft and weak attack. He could not see why Kabuto's right hand was injured. This is the horrible thing about the mimicry clone. Iruka once again played the role of the interpreter, explaining with rare patience. The foundation of Ino's control technique is to control the substance that it comes into contact with. The chakra that needs to be consumed to control the substance is proportional to the weight and volume of the substance and the distance between the substance and the body. The more chakra is consumed, the weight is the same. The essence of the mimicry clone is its own substance, and Ino uses the family secret technique to transfer a part of consciousness to the mimicry clone, which is equivalent to 0 distance between the body and the material, so it can be realized. Absolute control, free to change the form of mimicry clone. Ms. Iruka, can you make it simpler? Naruto interrupted impatiently with closed eyes. Hearing that, the corner of Iruka's eyes twitched. He thought that the explanation was simple enough. How many strings are missing in this guy's head so that he can't even understand this? In simple terms, the mimicry clone will not disappear when attacked, and any part of the body can be turned into a weapon. Although the guy named Kabuto caught the fist of the mimicry clone, the fist of the mimicry clone turned into an instant. Spiked, pierced his palm. Advertisement. So this is all. Naruto understood Sasuke's explanation in seconds and looked at him with a clear look. As a teacher, Iruka felt a deep blow. The Yamanaka family's secret arts are mostly used for secret investigations, and the offensive type is not strong, but Ino is the exception. With the control technique, she can combine the family secret arts to create an offensive ninjutsu that only she can use. The mimic clone is one of them. As long as the chakra that supports the operation is sufficient, the mimic clone composed of pure material can ignore all costs and endlessly attack the enemy. Iruka tentatively talked about the characteristics of the mimicry clone. As a result, Naruto's face was unsurprisingly confused, and he immediately made him give up the explanation completely, and at the same time it made him feel annoyed about how to teach Naruto tomorrow to learn freely. On the field, the attacks of the 6 mimic clones were incomparably tacitly coordinated, and each shot was a killer move, which made Kabuto had to use real skills to avoid it, but seemed to be embarrassed, but could avoid the mimicry clone every time, which was comparable to the elite Chunin. Speed attack. Facing the attack of 2 mimicry clones, Kabuto's eyes under the round frame glasses suddenly flashed with cold light. After hesitating, he still extracted chakra, which was significantly stronger than Genin, quickly avoiding the 2 blind spots. The fist that attacked in the direction, and then endured the sharp pain in his hand, using both hands and feet, made a few consecutive back-turning movements, temporarily out of the encirclement of the mimic clone, and then raised his hand without hesitation, and shouted eagerly. I surrender. Upon seeing this, the winning Ino stared at Kabuto in annoyance. Iruka just confessed that he forced Kabuto to use his real ability, thus revealing the fact that his strength is by no means Genin, but now that Kabuto has abstained, she has no chance of doing it, can only stare aside. In fact, Kabuto had intended to pretend to be invincible and abstain from a few random shots, but every time Ino's murderous attack forced him to deal with it, he didn't even have the opportunity to speak. If he kept hiding his strength, he would continue to do so. He will definitely be killed by the mimicry clone that is attacking more and more fiercely. As a last resort, he can only gamble on his luck, hoping that the outbreak just now did not attract the attention of others. Damn it! Failed to reveal the true face of that hypocritical guy. After Moonlight Storm announced the result, Ino snorted very uncomfortably, then leapt slightly and returned to the position of the 10th shift station upstairs. Are all the newcomers who graduated in this class are monsters? How come they are all so strong? Tenten was a little unbelievable, and Sasuke was fine. After all, he was the strongest rookie, but Shino and Ino knew at a glance that the rookies in the same class as Sasuke were also so strong. What is the reason? Did all the geniuses get together? This newcomer is very special. You have been busy practicing so you don't know. In the circle of Chunin and Jonin, the 9 of them are no longer unknown genins, especially Uzumaki Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, and Haruno Sakura. The 7th class is the strongest class in Konoha's history. Mr. Hokage's evaluation is that they are likely to surpass Konoha Sannin and become the pillar of Konoha's new generation. Guy explained, and when he heard what he said, Shaoli couldn't help but look at Sasuke who was chatting with Iruka not far away. The bandaged fist clenched tightly, and the previous defeat reappeared in his mind. The picture in Sasuke's hands. Failure once did not make him completely lose his fighting spirit. He originally only targeted Neji, but now he has found a goal that is almost impossible to surpass. He doesn't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. At this moment, Neji seemed to remember something suddenly, and asked Guy. Mr. Guy, who is that guy with a scar on his face? He. It's so bad for you to notice. Guy smiled slightly, and then continued with the 3 puzzled eyes. His name is Umino Iruka, a very amazing man. All freshmen in this class, it is the students he is responsible for. The reason why they can become so strong is that in addition to their own talents, the teaching of teacher Iruka has also played the most important role, alas. At the end, Guy suddenly sighed and said with regret, if you guys are late, you might be like the 9 of them, and become the ninjas that are highly valued by Master Hokage, but you can rest assured, although my level is not as good as Mr. Iruka, but I promise that I will train you to become excellent ninjas who can bloom all the time. After speaking, Guy gave a thumbs up to his 3 lovers, and at the same time grinned, revealing a row of bright white fang teeth, but the only one who was moved by his confident appearance admired him. It's just Shaoli. Tenten turned his head in disgust, seeming to feel that it is a bit shameful to have such a superb teacher and superb teammate. So, does that guy have the power to determine the fate of others? Neji murmured, then raised his head and looked at the bored Iruka not far away. A pair of distinctive pupils gradually revealed an inexplicable meaning. Chapter 150. In the 5th round, Temari vs Tenten, for Sasuke and the others, was just a boring contest between 2 insignificant female ninjas. The difference in strength was too big, and there was no interest in watching the game. Only Naruto was the only one to look forward to, because Tenten was a teammate of Shaoli, who he thought was pretty good, so he kept cheering on her, and didn't notice a somewhat resentful look nearby. Tenten, who is only good at throwing ninjas and long-range attacks, is naturally not Temari's opponent. As a result, he was easily abused by Temari. It's worth mentioning that when Temari used wind style to give Tenten the final blow to take her to the sky, Naruto finally couldn't help but shoot to catch Tenten who was about to land, and a hero came to save the beauty. After Tenten handed it to Guy, he was severely despised by Ino on the way back, and was ignored by her for the first time after the 8th class habitually greeted Hinata, which made him inexplicably embarrassed. Ms. Iruka, everyone looks so strange, did something happen? Under several weird gazes, Naruto scratched his head and looked at Iruka suspiciously. How do I know the mischief between you little kids? Ha ha. Iruka responded impatiently, and then suddenly yawned long, with drooping eyelids, and a listless look complaining. Really, I was still a little bit interested, but the 2 weak tires just broke. The kid played for so long and made me sleepy again. To tell the truth, it's really boring to see what they are trying to do. If it weren't for the wise woman of Crescent Moon, Iruka would have ran home to sleep a long time ago or wandered around. This is a competition with an absolute power gap. He really can't bring up any spirit. Just when Naruto was puzzled, the names of both players in the 6th round finally appeared on the electronic display board. Nara Shikamaru vs Golden Earth. Why is my only opponent a woman, so troublesome? Shikamaru looked listless like Iruka upstairs, obviously lacking motivation, and Jin, who heard him complain, seemed to think Shikamaru was weak, and said with contempt, "Then I will get rid of you quickly." The result is obvious. Shikamaru won easily. The strength gap is too big, resulting in the battle without a trace of suspense. At the end of the 6th round, when the names of the opponents in the 7th round appeared on the electronic display board, Iruka, who was about to fall asleep, finally raised his spirits. Inazukage vs Uzumaki Naruto. Damn it, why is it Naruto? Hey, I'm so lucky. The opponent is not the guy with a weak puncture, and it won't be boring anymore. There is a clear difference in morale between Naruto and Ya. This is inevitable. After getting along for so long, they have known each other for a long time. Ya knows that he is absolutely impossible to be Naruto's opponent, whether it is physical fitness, speed, chakra capacity, or ninjutsu ability. In terms of combat, there is no place where he can beat Naruto. After all, Naruto is the only one of them who can compare with Sasuke, and his strength can be imagined. Teeth, try your best. Good luck. Hinata and Shino's words of encouragement sounded like comfort no matter how they heard them. The corners of their mouths twitched, and then they sighed like confessing their fate. However, knowing that he is invincible, he must also bite the bullet, not only because Iruka is watching from above, but the main reason is that if he directly abstains, it means that he is a coward who will only shrink when he meets a strong enemy, and he is not worthy to join in this special circle of students that Mr. Iruka focuses on training. The two jumped directly over the railings, and soon stood opposite each other, and then quickly refined chakra at the same time. Suddenly, the momentum of the two climbed to the zenith before the game started, and the debris from the previous battle followed when the two chakras confronted. They were slightly suspended, and there was even a trace of cracks under the feet of the two. Feeling the astonishing aura of Naruto and Ya erupting at the same time, Moonlight Gale can foresee that the next competition will definitely not fall down like before. This will be a rare and exciting battle in this qualifier. Advertisement. Not only Moonlight Blast, everyone here is staring at Naruto and Ya underneath. Those in the know are looking forward to what kind of combat performance the two of the 9 specially trained newcomers will have. People who know them can tell from their age that they are not simple. After all, in the previous 4 rounds of battles, Sasuke, Shino, Ino, and Shikamaru, the 4 who easily solved their opponents, had one thing in common with the outrageously strong genin, that is, they are all rookies around 12 years old, so in at this time, it seemed to them that all the 12-year-old genin who participated this time are definitely extraordinary guys. The 7th round, Uzumaki Naruto vs. Inuzuka. Start. After giving the start instruction, Moonlight Hayate hurriedly flashed people, because he had just felt the urge of the two bodies who had reached the peak of their momentum, and people who didn't flash would be affected by the battle. Sure enough, the moment the moonlight gusts disappeared, Naruto and Ya's body disappeared in an instant. The next moment, only a muffled sound was heard, and the two fists slammed together, and the powerful forces collided. Several conspicuous cracks appeared on the floor under their feet. After the tentative attack, the figures of the two disappeared again, and then a series of violent clashes sounded on the court. Boom boom boom. The two figures, one orange and one gray, disappeared continuously, intertwined and flickered constantly. In just 10 breaths of time, they fought for dozens of rounds. Almost everyone was watching the fierce battle in the field with pure physical skills. It is not easy to judge the strength of the two by fighting against each other. At least it is also the strength of the elite Chunin level, and it is definitely a genius to possess such strength at this age. After the two figures were separated again, Naruto and Fang were more or less hung on the dots, and his breathing became heavier. Not bad, Ya, can actually be evenly matched with me. Naruto said with a triumphant expression. Hearing his words that seemed to be the strong to the weak, he curled his mouth in disdain. Stop a. Except for Sasuke and Hinata in 9 miles, the gap in other human skills is not big. How could it be possible that an overwhelming situation occurred only by fighting against physical skills? Bo. The white-haired Akamaru seemed to scream in response to Ya's words. Hey, your mouth really smells so bad, and I will tell you to close that smelly mouth right away. Naruto curled his lips. He knew what Ya said was right. If it is just physical exercises, Sasuke with Thunder Body Technique and Hinata with Grandmaster Gentle Fist have an absolute advantage, but knowing that, how can it be possible with his character that likes to be aggressive? Acknowledge that you are inferior to others. Come on, who is afraid of whom? Ya said fearlessly. After all, if you lose, you don't lose. Although there is nothing in his heart, he must not show weakness in his momentum. He knows the strength of Naruto very well. Don't look at the fact that he can be evenly matched with Naruto now, but it's just because it's just a pure physical skill competition. Once he gets serious and uses his true skills, his non-combat abilities won't be available at all. Use only family secrets to fight the storm control. There is no chance of winning. Seeing Naruto underneath starting to seal, Iruka suddenly lost interest in watching, and looked bored at Sasuke, who lost interest like him and then withdrew his gaze. Iruka thought for a while, and suddenly asked. Sasuke, do you remember the questions I left for you two when I was in Nami country? Hearing this, Sasuke was taken aback for a moment, then nodded after reacting, and said softly. Well, remember, about the question of guarding. It's been more than a month, how's it going? Do you have any eyebrows? In a chat-like relaxed tone, it is obvious that Iruka did not seriously ask Sasuke this question, just on a whim. After all, he does not think that the current Sasuke can understand all aspects of this obvious question. The really important things are not just through thinking. Bargains you can get. Chapter 151. Because I don't want to lose, so I need to guard it. Sasuke said of course. Hearing this answer, Iruka's face did not fluctuate. The answer is simple, anyone can come up with it. Therefore, what really matters is not the answer itself, but what can you see from this conclusion? That's right, this is the purpose of Iruka leaving questions. The answers that everyone knows have no value for thinking. The really important things are hidden behind the answers. No matter how you think about them, you can't get them. You can only feel them through personal experience. Something. When little Sakura was stabbed to the point and I thought she was bound to die, there was an unspeakable strong feeling in my heart. That strong feeling made my mind go blank, and constantly drove me to kill the one called Orochimaru's man. Sasuke calmly recounted the situation that caused Naruto to run away a few days ago, and he himself almost lost his mind. Although I always think that Sakura is a very annoying fellow, but at the same time, I have been a companion who has been practicing for 5 years. Therefore, I value her very much, not just her. For me, Naruto, Teeth and others are all important to me. Companions, if they are killed, I don't think I will be indifferent. Therefore, I can't wait to screw Orochimaru's head off right away at that time, but. Speaking of this, Sasuke paused, suddenly turned his head, looked straight at Iruka, and continued. At that time, I suddenly remembered the questions that Mr. Iruka asked us when he was in the country of waves, and some things that he said before. What do you think of? Iruka came over immediately. That night because Anko rushed over, Iruka ran away without time to ask carefully. Afterwards, he didn't care much about it. Anyway, Sakura was not dead, and it was Konoha and Orochimaru's thing. Naturally, the third-generation old man took care of it. He thought he was just an ordinary member of Konoha's many chunin, and he didn't bother to worry about it. As long as Orochimaru didn't bother him, he didn't bother to bother about it. I thought that the incident was just like that, but I didn't expect an unexpected joy at this time. The root of all struggles in the world. The tone became a little heavy. Sasuke's handsome little face had a little transcendence inexplicably. This is a breath that can only be derived after knowing a certain special definition, and Iruka who feels this rather nostalgic breath cannot help but stunned. Without noticing the strange expression on Iruka's face, Sasuke continued. People act for their own beliefs. Guard the village, guard their relatives, guard their lovers, guard their friends, guard all things important to them, so everyone is righteous. So there is no right or wrong in all things in the world, no one wants to lose, everyone wants to carry out their beliefs, so they can only save their lives to act, and everyone guards different things and beliefs, it is inevitable that there will be contradictions and difficulties. To understand each other, when all the contradictions are intertwined, there is a fight, even a war. This is my conclusion. Iruka smiled and reminded softly. Well, so I still can't fully understand Iruka's previous ideas that you said, but Iruka's conclusions have given me some inspiration. Tell me. Sasuke nodded, and there was a contemplative expression behind him, as if he was organizing words, and after a while he continued. When different obsessions and different forms of justice are intertwined, there is bound to be a winner. The world will not end as long as the winner is determined like a simple game. The loser will inevitably be lost to him. Important things generate resentment. Resentment will become a new belief that drives him to carry out actions that deepen contradictions, and each person is not an independent individual in this world. Related individuals are involved in this resentment. Over time, this kind of resentment will not only not be eradicated, but new resentment will appear again, thus forming a vicious circle. If you can't understand each other, you can't stop the fight. The final evolution is the blood-stained hillside infinitely enlarged. Scene. Hearing this, Iruka's face suddenly became a little weird. He knows that Sasuke is very good. Of course, this kind of excellence does not refer to extraordinary aptitude. After all, for Iruka, the aptitude on the level of strength alone is not in his eyes. What Sasuke attaches most to Iruka is the development of the spiritual realm. The transcendent way of thinking shown later. Advertisement. 5 years ago, Sasuke was able to put forward thought-provoking topics. With the growth of experience, this distinctive way of thinking will become more and more obvious, and one day it will grow to the level that Iruka can meet a certain standard in Iruka's mind. But Iruka really did not expect that day would come so soon. This FK Sasuke has only graduated 4 months, right? It was just a surprise. Sasuke was able to grow to this point. Is he too heaven-defying? That kind of strong feeling is a derivative product of the loss of important things. The anger born from resentment. If Naruto and I kill Orochimaru in order to avenge the little Sakura, those who follow that guy will never understand that we are because we are right. Little Sakura's grievances that he was killed will only do everything possible to vent their accumulated grievances. If Naruto and I die under this resentment, Shikamaru and the others will never sit idly by, and a chain reaction will take place. Thinking of this, I tried to break away from the limitations of individuals, families, relatives and friends, etc., as teacher Iruka said, and see the essence of things from an absolute perspective. At that time, I faintly felt something. As he said, Sasuke's face suddenly became frustrated. That feeling, maybe it's the idea that Mr. Iruka you said belongs to me, but I don't know why, no matter how I think about it afterwards, I can't catch the most. The key point, Mr. Iruka, am I let you down? Quote. Iruka is speechless. If Sasuke, who has already touched the rudiment of the concept, has let him down, how high is his request? Compared to Naruto, who only knows how to practice silly, or 7 other students who don't even know what the concept is, Sasuke is almost a century ahead. This kind of qualification is barely comparable to what he used to be. At this moment, a violent wind swept into the entire playing field suddenly appeared below, and everyone watching the game upstairs had to use chakra to suck the ground, so that they were not affected by the storm, but they were completely unable to see the situation underneath. Using the big storm technique in such a place, Naruto is really messing around as always. Really, can't you just estimate others? Iruka, who was not affected at all, complained, then suddenly raised his hand, put it on Sasuke's head, rubbed his black hair, and whispered. You have done a good job. To be honest, your growth rate has exceeded my expectations, but this kind of thing is not anxious, and the concept is not a cabbage product that can be obtained only through a special experience. It is the most critical key to open the door of the strong. What you lack now is the experience that can provide you with thinking materials. Take your time. Sasuke nodded, not resisting Iruka's actions as if he were a child. Well, I see, Mrs. Iruka. The strong wind gradually dissipated. When everyone's sights returned, the competition venue had become a mess. 2 of the stone fingers on the side of the hand were printed directly off. The ground was densely packed with cracks, and no one on the floor was good. In some places not only the floor was turned over, but also big pits appeared underneath, and the debris fluttered up. This scene was completely unlike Genin's competition venue, but more like a battlefield after Jonin's fierce ninjutsu battle. Naruto panted heavily, and the orange coat on her body was almost scrapped. Only a few cloth strips were left hanging on it. There were many wounds on the exposed skin. The bloodline oozes out of her fist, which looked miserable, but these were just skin injuries. It's okay to just apply some traumatic injuries. With Naruto's physique, he can handle it even if he doesn't apply medicine. In front of him, Ya was even more miserable than him. His shirt had long since been known where he had gone. His muscles had been exposed, and his pants had been reimbursed for more than a half. His body was dirty, just like a beggar. Akamaru was lying on his stomach. On his chest, 1 person and 1 dog turned by Byakugan at the same time, apparently unconscious. Although it looks embarrassing on the surface, Naruto has a refreshed face. Obviously, it is very happy to fight with Ya with all his strength. After all, the students who are the same as Iruka's key training, their strength gap will not be too different. To the point where it is impossible to win without exerting all his strength, Naruto hasn't played with all his strength for more than a month. With his active character, it is only strange that he won't do a good job. Bang! The moonlight blast, which I felt was likely to be affected and ran away, suddenly appeared next to Naruto, glanced at the tooth that fell on the ground, and then announced the result of the game routinely. In the 7th round, Uzumaki Naruto won. As for whether his heart is as calm as he is on the surface, only he knows. At least everyone upstairs is looking at Naruto and Ya with monster eyes. Chapter 152 Sasuke's Growth. In the 8th round, Hyuga Hinata vs Hyuga Neji. The rare Byakugan duel, but Iruka was not interested. He turned his head and looked over a short distance to Naruto, who was screaming for Hinata, who was about to start the competition, and looked at the mysterious body of Schwanyu. As if she had a heart, Iruka hadn't waited for Iruka to use her ability to vibrate the air around Crescent Moon's ears to make a sound. She suddenly turned her head, who was bored and looked around. The 2 of them immediately faced each other. Upon seeing this, Iruka stopped refining chakra, and then headed towards the exit. Suddenly, the next moment, he saw Zan Yu Miao understood what he meant, and nodded gently. The 2 turned around at the same time and walked outside. There are still 2 qualifiers left. Are you ready to go shopping with me in such a hurry? After meeting in the corridor, Zan Yu lightly stroked her long hair that fell to her ears, and joked with a chuckle. Hearing this, Iruka suddenly twitched the corners of his mouth, then shook his head, and said in a serious tone. This kind of put aside in advance, Crescent Moon, I have something I need your help. It's easy. Schwanyu promised bluntly, but when Iruka was relieved, she suddenly twitched the corner of her mouth, revealing a meaningful smile, and whispered softly, as long as it's not about Uchiha Sasuke, no matter what I can agree to everything, even if you want to solve a certain need, as long as Kwanmei doesn't mind, I will. Stop it. Iruka decisively raised his hand to interrupt Zan Yu's words. For business, don't talk to me about those who are there or not, and, can you please don't say those nasty things. By the way, you weren't a pure sect before. How to leave Konoha go has it become so bold in 2016? I don't want to be rushed into the women's bathhouse 5 years ago, but now I'm hiding in the house reading pornographic books all day, and I'm changing my job from a big satyr to a boring man. In order to avoid misunderstandings, you'd better ask me to finish talking. Crescent Moon's face was filled with a joke that made Iruka quite uncomfortable, and continued. What I just wanted to say is, as long as Izumi doesn't mind, I can help you find a woman who can meet your needs. It's not what you think. That kind of dishonest thing. I'm not as wretched as you said, and I actually suggested that I look for that kind of dishonest woman. What kind of serious thing is this for you? Is the babysitter very serious? I just said that I can help you find a babysitter to take care of you. After all, Quan may complain to me that you are a slacker or something, there will definitely be a need to be taken care of, right? But if you ask a babysitter, please Izumi might mind my own sense of existence, so I said that I need to ask for Izumi's consent first. Zan Yu's delicate and pretty face flashed brightly, and then looked at Iruka with a look that seemed to be looking at trash. Quite disgusting way. I said, Mr. Iruka, were you thinking about something nasty just now? Iruka was defeated in an instant. Although he was 100% sure that this was the set given to him by the crescent moon, the initial meaning was absolutely what he thought, but his sophistry ability was average, and he was not a clever crescent moon at all. Fortunately, he is not a simple man who will be shaken by a battle of this degree. With just one breath, the embarrassment on Iruka's face disappears instantly, and then he calmly said. Let's end the small talk. To talk about business, I am really looking for you for Sasuke's business. It's obviously more interesting to talk about business, it's so boring. Zan Yu took a step back, then leaned back and leaned her back on the windowsill behind her, her face full of laziness but faint. There is a noble temperament. Advertisement. Iruka looked away from an unusually prominent part, his tone still remained unchanged. The growth of Sasuke and Naruto is very important to me. Naruto I will figure out my own way, but I can't help Sasuke's strong bloodline. He's busy, and he's in a very special state now. Only when he breaks through this state can he break through the cocoon and become a butterfly, and grow into a truly perfect work for me. It's possible for me to see the past. I have longed for but have not realized the situation, therefore, I need your help. Hearing this, Zan Yu narrowed his eyes slightly, and said in surprise. Desire. The first time I heard, I thought Mr. Iruka, you are a person who has no desires and no desires, as long as no one disturbs your peaceful life, even if the world is about to be destroyed, you will not care about it. So you also have goals. You really know me. Iruka curled his lips. At the beginning, he was really wantless. When he came to this world, he didn't have any goals. He just wanted to train a few disciples to pass the time, but later the in-depth understanding of the world and the potential shown by Naruto and Sasuke made him change his mind at the beginning. Moreover, after having interpersonal relationships, his attitude towards life has also inadvertently changed. Although in essence it is still the original way of doing things as long as the peaceful life is not affected, he doesn't care about everything around him, but he doesn't. I completely ignore people who really have something to do with him. For example, Izumi. When Izumi had troubles before, in order to understand her heart no matter how reluctant he was, he finally followed Izumi on the journey to find Uchiha Itachi, although in the end he didn't find a single piece of Uchiha Itachi. But at any rate it was also for her to act. If you are willing to help, I can promise you one thing, as long as it is within my power. Iruka didn't want to talk nonsense, and made a serious promise. Sasuke's growth rate is really amazing. The day and night practice is just a waste of time. As he said, what Sasuke needs is real experience, so that he can guide him through seeing different people and things. He thinks, gets his own conclusion from thinking, and derives what he really needs from the conclusion. It belongs to his philosophy. Really desperate, that little devil is not relative to you, but only your student. Although he has extraordinary qualifications, is it really worth it for you to do this for him? Zan Yu did not directly agree, but asked inexplicably. What stupid thing to say. As a teacher, isn't it a matter of course to work hard for students? And, Iruka smiled, and then looked at Zan Yu seriously, and said solemnly, I believe you are not that kind of unreasonable harassment people. Should I thank you for your trust? Up to you. Xuan Yu shrugged, still with an expression that Iruka couldn't understand. Tell me how to do it. I don't think you told me this so solemnly just for me to teach that kid Sharingan to use. Seeing Zan Yu agreed, Iruka breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 153. Ms. Iruka, what should I do to learn to be comfortable? Just walking through the woods on the outskirts of Konoha and arriving on a large open ground, Naruto couldn't wait to drop his backpack and asked Iruka excitedly. You have asked this question no less than 10 times, there are endless you. Bang. Ah, it hurts. Iruka banged Naruto's head fiercely. Naruto finally calmed down. Iruka suddenly felt that the whole world was quiet. Then he threw the backpack aside and put his head on it, obviously wanting to rest. Naruto didn't dare to disturb Iruka, otherwise the ghost knew what the ghost animal teacher would do to him. After a while, it seemed to be too boring. Iruka suddenly asked. Naruto, I heard that Hinata gave away the practice ring. After they have their own spiritual realm, the practice ring that achieves the practice effect by forming a pseudo-spiritual realm is naturally useless. Therefore, Shikamaru Hinata and the others have become ordinary trinkets since they were 10 years old, because their appearance is a bit frustrating. No one wore the relationship, but Iruka did not take it back. Except for Naruto's practice ring which was taken back and given to Izumi Mi, the others' practice rings were regarded as collections by them. Although Iruka didn't explain anything about the practice ring, but they dare not deal with it casually. Iruka doesn't care about this. The soul energy in the ring can't be recovered anyway, and it's useless for him to practice the ring. Therefore, he didn't blame Hinata for making his own claims, just because Guy and Hong talked to him about it later. Just ask this on a whim. Yeah, Naruto nodded, and then elaborated. Give it to a guy named Neji, he's quite strong, Mr. Iruka yesterday, you left too early, so I didn't see it. Hinata spent a good time. It was only after great strength that Neji was defeated. Apart from Sasuke, it was the first time I saw anyone who could fight Hinata in physical skills for so long. Hearing that, Iruka's image of Hinata's shy, soft girl suddenly appeared in Iruka's mind. She was obviously weak and deceptive, but she had a super strength physique that even Sasuke was afraid of. If it were pure physique, Hinata would definitely be the strongest of the 9 of them, it's just that she is too low-key, and she didn't show much of her brilliance. Iruka has a vague impression of Neji. After all, he has the habit of perceiving the strength of the force field of people who meet for the first time and judging their strength. From the perspective of Neji's strength, although it will be more troublesome, Hinata, who is extremely good at physical skills, deals with the same type. He shouldn't be as strenuous as Naruto said. After all, even Sasuke has to activate the Thunder Body technique to tie Hinata in physical skills, not to mention the others. There is only one possibility for what Naruto said. Hinata released the water again. Why do you say, again? Because Iruka knows that Hinata's character is too kind. This kindness is even worse than that of she who can't kill him. Bai at least can keep his normal mind and make him lose his combat effectiveness without killing the opponent, while Hinata is. You have to make up your mind even if you make a heavy hand. Why did Hinata give him the practice ring? Compassionate. If that's the case, Naruto, the top of your head is going to be green. Iruka laughed and joked. Although he doesn't care much about the sluggishness among the students, it is too obvious whether it is the little Sakura and Ino's idiots towards Sasuke, or Hinata's unique attitude only when facing Naruto. It's hard not to pay attention. This is the so-called bystander Ching, and sometimes he even feels sad that Hinata, who likes Naruto, is a sentimental idiot. Of course, Iruka has never thought about whether he has the right to despise others. Naruto obviously didn't understand what Iruka's last sentence meant, and scratched his head with some doubts, but he still habitually ignored that sentence that felt irrelevant. I don't know. After Neji was defeated, he said something unwilling to do with fate. After he left the field, Hinata followed up and handed Neji a scroll, as if her father asked her to give it to Neji. Neji looked at it. I don't know why I cried, and then Hinata suddenly gave him the practice ring. Nah, Mr. Iruka, why do you think this is? I'm not from the Hyuga family, I can know a fart. Advertisement. Iruka responded irritably, then stretched her body and changed to a position where she could lie down more comfortably, saying boredly. Except for the duel at Hyuga's house, did anything interesting happen after I left? Interesting thing. Naruto really didn't know what Iruka was interested in. He recalled what happened yesterday, and then as if he had suddenly thought of something, he continued. The 10th match between Choji and Odonin, it's so boring. I won't talk about it, but in the 9th match, the battle between Xiaoli and Gaara, the guy with the gourd mouth, was unexpectedly exciting. I didn't expect Xiaoli to be so powerful. What is the move called 8 Inner Gates? It's almost stronger than Sasuke's Thunder Body technique, and almost defeated Gaara. Then Naruto vividly portrayed the battle between Xiaoli and Gaara, but Iruka was really not interested in it. He hadn't seen 8 Inner Gates before, and Xiaoli was not his student. He would be interested in Xiaoli's battle. That's weird. Is this what you find interesting? Naruto, your interest is really vulgar. Hearing that, Naruto's eyes suddenly narrowed into a slit, looking at Iruka's ninja bag with a corner of the book, a look of contempt suddenly flashed across his face. Mr. Iruka, who always carries this kind of unscrupulous yellow book, is the real vulgarity. No, it's vulgar, right? But he didn't dare to say this. Even if he was guilty of Iruka so many times, he didn't dare to die in front of Iruka, and he would grow his wisdom after eating. Naruto was not too stupid to save him, this he still understands the truth. And you said that Xiaoli is great here, where is that great or something, and was not defeated by that sand shinobi in the end. Although you should not only pursue results, but if you ignore the results, won't the process become meaningless? That's right, Naruto murmured, but didn't know how to answer. Damn it, what Mr. Iruka said makes sense, and there is no room for refutation at all. Iruka yawned, feeling almost rested, and was about to stand up and start to teach Naruto to be comfortable. Although he is not an elemental ability, he knows how to strengthen all known abilities, including elemental abilities. After all, in the science and technology world, if you want to become a true capable person, you must master a lot of knowledge, which includes all the known ability information. This is to improve the ability of the capable person to win the battle. After all, the master has the characteristics of the ability. A targeted action plan can be specified so as not to be caught off guard when responding. But at this moment, Naruto suddenly said, after Xiaoli's strongest blow was defended by Gaara, he lost consciousness, but Gaara obviously won the game, but wanted to kill Xiaoli when the examiner didn't announce the result. Fortunately, someone shot him in time and took Xiaoli. Saved it. As he said, Naruto smiled mysteriously, and then said triumphantly, hey. Mr. Iruka, do you know who saved Xiaoli? You can't guess it, yes. Is it Sasuke? Iruka directly said the name Naruto wanted to say. Upon hearing this, Naruto's face suddenly stiffened and looked at Iruka incredulously. Mr. Iruka, how did you guess it? Do you know how to read mind? Does this still have to be guessed? The answer is written on your face. Let's not talk about whether Xiaoli's companions Tenten and Neji are able to save people. Both of them have been on the field and don't have much stamina at all. If Guy takes a shot or Moonlight Storm and others stop the game, then what would be surprising? Of course, in fact, these factors can be ignored. You only need to notice Naruto's eyes that only flash when someone mentions someone to tell who the shot is. When Naruto heard Iruka's words, he immediately took out a mirror from his bag. The ghost knew that he was going to carry the things commonly used by this woman for Mao, but when he was about to take a photo, he heard Iruka's tone of helplessness as if giving up something. Road. Are you an idiot? I'm just describing it. Do you know what a description is? Forget it. I always feel that asking you this question will make me stupid. Chapter 154 is Naruto Green. Okay, that's the end of the chat, it's time to start practicing. Iruka stood up suddenly, patted the weeds and dust on his butt. Hearing this, Naruto, who was about to say that Sasuke also gave the practice ring to Shaoli, stopped talking, his face was full of excitement. He jumped up and said with great interest. Is it finally going to start? Mr. Iruka, tell me what to do, I can't wait. Hurry up, how can you be so impetuous in cultivation? Do you want to die? Iruka banged Naruto's forehead with no anger, and then solemnly said, remember, the practice of self-cultivation is risky. Although your chakra volume has reached the standard of self-cultivation, as I said before, if there is an accident that causes the body to be transformed into an element and cannot be transformed back, it will completely become a natural element. In other words, the part that cannot be transformed back into the body will disappear forever. You can imagine that if a part of the body is missing, it will what happened. Hearing that, Naruto's face suddenly stiffened, and the excitement on his face disappeared instantly, replaced by endless tremors. If the hair and nails are missing a bit, there is nothing, but the lack of an arm or a broken leg will shudder just thinking about it. That, Mr. Iruka, is it really that dangerous? Yes, you have to know that gain is directly proportional to risk. If you want to increase your strength by leaps and bounds, how can you not take the corresponding risks? Huh, Iruka's mouth twitched slightly, revealing an inexplicable smile. Why, afraid? If you are afraid, just give up this dangerous practice. Anyway, you are already close to Jonin in terms of strength. What you lack is just the accumulation of knowledge and mission experience needed to be promoted to Jonin. It is a matter of time before you become a Jonin, and even becoming a Hokage is no longer an unattainable dream. Isn't your dream to become a Hokage that can be recognized by the people in the village? There is no need to learn to be at ease and you can do it, it's just that the chance to surpass Sasuke will be lost forever. This is a trivial price. It's not trivial. For me, that's everything to me. Naruto's eyes suddenly became extremely firm, and he interrupted Iruka's words directly, and then condensedly said, I want to surpass Sasuke, surpass the previous generations of Hokage, and be able to Hokage, which Mr. Iruka agrees with, is my real dream. Snapped. Naruto's clenched fists slammed together, and his body no longer trembles because of the risk of self-cultivation. The unwavering will that grew up with him can be seen on his face, which is where Iruka admires Naruto most. I want to practice freely, and I have to learn it anyway, and I have to learn it in one day, to prove to Sasuke that I am definitely no worse than him. Naruto's imposing declaration immediately made Iruka smile with great relief, and then saw him whisper in Naruto's firm gaze. Don't worry, with your ability. Hearing this seemed to agree with him in advance, Naruto suddenly opened his eyes and smiled, but you can never learn it in one day. Naruto's smile instantly solidified on his face, but Iruka didn't bother to pay attention to his feelings. After he let Naruto stand still, he walked aside, and then took out the 5 scrolls prepared in advance from his arms and controlled it with his ability. Levitating on the scroll, Naruto was surrounded by a 5-pointed star. Drink. Iruka gave a soft drink, a light blue light burst out of his body, and at the same time his hands quickly formed a seal. With his movements, the 5 scrolls opened at the same time, and the ink-colored text inside seemed to be alive. It quickly detached from the surface of the roll, quickly emerged, and then quickly fell to the ground, and soon a layer of weird ink-colored rune formations appeared on the ground. Ninfa, Wanfa Tianluo. Advertisement. Ninjutsu was activated instantly, and the ink-colored text surrounding Naruto suddenly flashed with a strange black light, then it turned red, orange, yellow, green, purple, and finally turned back to black. The next moment, the distance was close. The ink-colored text suddenly began to blend together, and then gradually stretched and became longer. Some of the blended ink-colored text continued to change various shapes. When everything stabilized, the place where Naruto stood, except for the 2-meter open space, within 10 meters of a radius, there are all rune patterns evolved from ink-colored characters, which are mysterious and weird. Ms. Iruka, is this? Iruka wiped the sweat from his head. Obviously this technique was not easy for him. After hearing Naruto's question, Iruka curled his lips and said in disgust. To put it simply, this is an inherent barrier that can minimize the risk of self-cultivation. The principle is too complicated, and it is not directly related to this practice. You don't need to know it all. I won't talk about it, anyway. You don't understand, I don't bother to waste saliva. Quote. Naruto was speechless. Although he knew that Iruka's usual manners and words were not what a ninja teacher should have, he always felt strange every time he heard Iruka's rude speech. Stop talking nonsense, Naruto, what I'm going to say next is very important. In any case, you have to write down what I said. If there is a mistake in the middle, even with the protection of the inherent barrier, it is likely to cause failure. The results of the salvation, so you must never take it lightly. If you don't understand, you must ask. I know you have the habit of pretending to understand, but this time, don't be aggressive. Gudong. Seeing that Iruka's expression was so serious, Naruto couldn't help swallowing nervously, and then he took a deep breath and adjusted his mentality, then solemnly responded, I see, Mr. Iruka, don't worry. Iruka nodded, organized the language a little, and then slowly said after a while. First of all, you must fully understand the process of initiating the ability. Being able to use the ability does not mean that you have a good understanding of the process of initiating the ability. Quote. Stopping Naruto, who wanted to argue, Iruka continued. There are 3 conditions for the ability to activate, namely chakra, spiritual realm, and pure spiritual energy, which can also be said to be consciousness. The spiritual realm is equivalent to a relay, connecting consciousness and reality, so that reality can be distorted according to its own consciousness and create personal reality. To change the inherent form of reality, there must be some kind of energy to support its operation. This energy is chakra. Since chakra is a combination of physical energy and mental energy, the ability to use it will consume both physical and mental energy and distort reality. The degree and spiritual energy. Ms. Iruka. Naruto suddenly raised his hand high, interrupting Iruka's speech, and then shouted, I'm very sorry, I don't understand, please make it simpler. Oh, Iruka sighed. Although he had anticipated Naruto's current reaction, people always have a fluke. However, the reality is so cruel. Iruka rubbed his temples, feeling speechless at Naruto's ability to understand, and had a headache. After giving several simple and easy to understand examples in a row, Naruto finally barely understood Iruka's process and principle of launching ability. At this time, Iruka was sweating profusely, as if experiencing an extremely intense experience. In the battle, the whole person looked like collapsed. Ms. Iruka, what is the way to express the manifestation of the spiritual realm in reality according to my own consciousness through chakra, and to realize personal reality? Simply put, what is in my mind, what will appear in reality, right? So you just ignore the specific manifestation of the spiritual realm in this way. Iruka shook his head. He didn't bother to correct the mistakes in Naruto's understanding. It can be understood so. The tone was deeply helpless, but fortunately, he already understood the things that needed Naruto to understand. As for the others, forget it, I'll talk about it later. However, he didn't know that this was just the beginning of pain. Chapter 155. Just when Iruka's fragile brain cells were tortured to death by Naruto's rusty head, and the loss was extremely heavy, at this time his home was an extremely peaceful scene. The mysterious black cat Xiaohei brought back from Unokuni after having lunch, his movements were much slower than before, but he still jumped on the sofa with ease, and then rolled his belly on the soft sofa with a meow. It rolled around, and after a while, it finally calmed down. After trimming the beard on the round cat's face, he put 2 paws together, put his head on it, and began to enjoy a peaceful nap. Sleep when you are full, eat when you are full, woo you, ordinary, peaceful, what an ideal life. At this time, there is not only one black cat in the house. When the doorbell rang in the porch, the room on the left side of the house clicked, the door was opened, and the crescent moon wearing lavender silk pajamas he walked out with a yawning face, rubbing his sleepy eyes, and walked towards the hallway. Quote. Sasuke, who was standing outside for a long time, looked at him with some disheveled clothes and messy hair. After seeing that the person was Sasuke, the hazy color on his face disappeared in an instant, replaced by extreme he's indifferent, like looking at a stranger. It seems that Mr. Iruka has already told you, then I won't talk nonsense. Xuanyu looked at the travel bag on Sasuke's back, looking like he was going to travel, and said indifferently, wait for me here. There is no nonsense, the words are clean, and there is no muddle. It seems that she doesn't want to say a word to Sasuke. Before Sasuke responds, she quickly turned around, and then closed the door with a pop, without letting go. Sasuke intends to enter the house. Xiaohei was awakened by the heavy slamming of the door. He raised his head, his pale golden cat eyes stared at the coming crescent moon, and a very humane expression appeared on the round cat's face. Ah, little sister, why stare at me like this? Are you asking me to tell Mr. Iruka your true identity? If so, then I am willing to help, hee. Mrs. Iruka seems to like it very much. As for the cat, he always hugs you and rubs it at home. If he knows what you really look like, what would he look like? I said so expectantly. Zhan Yu, who noticed Xiaohei's humanized gaze, said inexplicably. Xiaohei seemed to understand her, and after glaring at her again, he lay down again. He didn't know if he didn't want to pay attention to Zhan Yu or admitted it. Ns. Upon seeing this, Zhan Yu chuckled lightly, and said without looking back as he walked towards the house. You should be grateful. Fortunately, due to the blood relationship, Azumi's pupil power is worse than the ordinary Sharingan, so she didn't find you. Otherwise, because of the threat you posed to her in some way, she will probably do everything possible to sweep you out. Yes, but I advise you to be an ordinary cat in peace, otherwise, as Sister Izumi, I think about her future, and I won't be polite to you. Xiaohei's furry ears moved, but he didn't open his eyes, as if he didn't hear him, he continued to enjoy his nap. Sasuke waited outside the door for half an hour, his face gradually showing impatientness. When he was about to press the doorbell again, the door finally opened, and there was a sharp contrast with the previous outfit, wearing a female ninja from the Uchiha clan, the most commonly worn black high-necked sleeveless top, underneath his white cropped trousers with ninja shoes, with 2 daggers on his back, and the original black waist-length hair tied into a ponytail that is easy to move. Zhan Yu has a cold face. Came out. After locking the door, crescent moon didn't even look at Sasuke, and took the lead to walk towards the stairs not far away. At the same time, he said without looking back. Let's go. I will complete the agreement with Mr. Iruka, and teach you everything I know about Sharingan within a month before the official trials of Chunin, and at the same time. After a pause, Xuanyu suddenly raised her head and looked towards the boundless sky. Finally, there was a slight fluctuation in her tone, and she whispered. Let you see the most real world. ... Whether it is a superpower in the past life or a ninja in this life, you must remember and stick to a certain definition. Reason. Yes, in a real battle, you must maintain sufficient reason, use a calm mind to analyze the situation, find favorable conditions from it, formulate a careful plan, and put it into action at the most appropriate time. Only then can you win in one fell swoop. Opportunity. The loser is often the one who loses his mind. Although there are battles that rely on will en route to win victory, they are just an example and must not be used as a reference. Therefore, the conclusion is that no matter what the world, no matter what time, no matter what occasion, we must maintain sufficient reason to deal with all situations. Advertisement. This is the conclusion he came to after surviving in countless blood and fire battlefields and walking to the top of the world with the corpses of countless strong men. The credibility is absolutely exploding, even if the strength is still there, and the ambition is gone now. Iruka has never forgotten this. Because of this, Iruka is able to maintain himself at all times, knowing what he wants to do and what he needs to do. So when Iruka faced Naruto, who was not far away, with a bewildered look, let her be rational. Ms. Iruka, why use Shadow Clone? Why think of yourself as wind? Why release chakra casually? Why give up control completely? Gravity field. Let him go to hell. Wow. A tenfold gravitational field was applied to Naruto, and Naruto suddenly felt as if there was a big mountain on his body. Unprepared, his body was pressed hard on the ground, and a human-shaped pattern was directly pressed on the ground. Angrily, Iruka, who used the most direct way to shut Naruto's mouth, kept breathing heavily, but saw veins on his face and his hair exploded. The scarred face, which was originally quite dark, was completely black at this time. After coming down, it is estimated that a little more stimulus can make him completely explode and instantly turn Fangyuanbei into ashes. That's right, he is on the verge of collapse, and it's the first time in 5 years since he was reborn in this world that he has been in such an extremely unstable state for the first time. He can't even control his aura. It was full of dense cracks, and the cracks actually spread to a few meters away, which shows how awkward his mood is at this time. After a while, the effect of the gravity field slowly disappeared naturally, and when Naruto, whose body was full of fragrant soil, struggled to get up, the ups and downs of Iruka's chest finally calmed down. Damn it, I must become Hokage. Tenten sends Mr. Iruka out to perform the task. Iruka curled his mouth and didn't bother to pay attention to Naruto's brave words. He took a deep breath, calmed his mind, thought for a while, then sighed helplessly, rubbing his temples and said. Forget it, it's completely useless to explain what. Naruto, you start doing what I said, don't ask why. From now on there is no why in your dictionary. If you let me hear another sentence why, you all immediately roll me back to the ninja school, understand? That's right, after more than an hour of basically meaningless explanations, and after a rare runaway, Iruka finally gave up. Why? Yep, Naruto just subconsciously wanted to ask, but when Iruka's dangerous gaze glanced at him, he immediately felt an extremely cold chill. Even in the hot summer, his body instinctively shivered and his face leaked. Dense cold sweat came out. No. Nothing. After feeling an extremely strong sense of crisis, Naruto was embarrassed. Upon seeing this, Iruka immediately smiled with satisfaction, and gave Naruto a look of, you guys are acquainted, and then decisively ordered. Okay, don't waste any more time, Naruto, first come out in 2 Shadow Clone. Yes, Naruto obediently made a seal, and the next moment, with 2 soft bangs, 2 Shadow Clones identical to Naruto appeared next to him, quietly waiting for Iruka's next instruction. Chapter 156. Naruto, you now touch another Shadow Clone with your hand, and then simply activate the occult technique. Use chakra to turn the Shadow Clone into an airflow. Remember, don't treat the Shadow Clone as a substance. Just when you touch the air, existence, this concept is erased. It's still hard to understand. Naruto acted as Iruka wanted, but including Naruto's deity, 3 identical faces frowned at the same time. Fail. Naruto seemed to simply put his hands on the back of Shadow Clone, with no change at all. Upon seeing this, Iruka squeezed his temples again with a headache. The price paid for helping Naruto's practice is too heavy. Iruka feels that his brain is about to explode. After returning to the village, he must relax. Otherwise, if the irritability and stress build up just now, it will definitely affect the physical state, although appearance I don't care very much, but I can't decay before I get old, right? Iruka shook his head, shook off those erratic thoughts, then thought for a while, and said, Naruto, you think about it carefully, when you used the spiritual realm to activate the secret arts, did you instinctively choose to be as open as possible? Launch. Of course. Naruto nodded, taking it for granted. It is convenient to create airflow in an open place, and even if you can use wind style in a narrow place, the effect is not good, and it is easy to cause accidents. Speaking of the last, Naruto curled his lips in dissatisfaction. Mr. Iruka, don't underestimate me. I have studied both Muji and wind style carefully, of course. Stop it. Iruka raised his hand and prevented Naruto from speaking. He really didn't want to listen to Naruto's nonsense anymore, and continued blankly. The shadow clone group stayed quietly. Remember, wait, no matter what happens, you will never move even if someone is attacked. As for you, Naruto, you close your eyes now, don't think about anything, and empty your mind. Although he didn't know what Iruka was going to do, Naruto closed his eyes as he said, and then he heard a series of instructions from Iruka. Raise your hand horizontally and move 2 centimeters toward 7 o'clock. Yes, that's it, and then take 2 steps forward. Okay, for this distance, now refine the chakra, the more the better. Seeing that Naruto has refined a large amount of chakra, Iruka suddenly raised his hand, his fingers slightly hooked, a light blue brilliance flashed, the spiritual realm instantly connected to reality, and the ability was quickly activated. Force field control. The next moment, the ground under Naruto's shadow clone's feet suddenly squirmed slightly. As Iruka had previously ordered, although the 2 shadow clones were a little confused, they still stood quietly, like 2 dedicated guards, motionless. Not long after, the shadow clone's position wriggled along with the silent ground, and quietly moved to a position less than 1 centimeter away from the palm of Naruto's outstretched right hand. Then Iruka continued. Naruto, concentrate the refined chakra on the palm of your right hand. Hearing this, Naruto didn't doubt that he had him, and he did so. Not long after, a conspicuous blue light appeared on his palm, which could burst out chakra visible to the naked eye at will. Iruka could not help but envy the amount of chakra. Well, very good. You should maintain this state for now and don't move. You can start after I finish talking. Iruka confessed and waited for the chakra in Naruto's hands to stabilize before continuing. Next, use your fastest speed to create personal reality, and activate the basic secret technique in the blank space in front of your palm, that is, use chakra to transform the airflow. You don't need to control it, you can transform it out. Remember, the hand must remain still. And the operation must be fast, you must not hesitate, do you understand? Naruto nodded, his consciousness connected to the spiritual realm, ready to activate the secret technique at any time. Then, I count 1, 2, 3, when I count to 3, you immediately activate the secret technique, if you fail to respond. At this point, Iruka suddenly became cold and said solemnly, you just go back to the ninja school and don't even want to graduate for the rest of your life. Of course, you can also wonder if I have the patience to get you back, as long as you have the guts. Gudong. Advertisement. Naruto swallowed and looked a little nervous. He knew that Iruka had always done what he said. Since he said so, the consequences of not being able to do it would definitely be the same as he said. In my mind, Sasuke Sakura and the others became elite Jonin one by one, and they came to the ninja school to visit themselves, who were studying hard with a bunch of little ghosts. That situation. Never fail this time. Ready. Iruka's indifferent voice sounded. Naruto gritted his teeth, concentrated, and waited for Iruka to count to the last number. So, 3. #*%. Single quote. Iruka directly skipped the first 2 digital deceptions and Naruto's face instantly became as uncomfortable as if he had eaten a fly. He didn't even have time to curse vocabulary. Naruto hurriedly started the chakra that he had prepared, the transformation of the spiritual realm and reality. It was completed almost in an instant, and the ability was activated in an instant. Secret technique, Fengming. Iruka didn't bother to worry about how the name Naruto came up with this dying move. He looked at the stunned expression of Shadow Clone in front of Naruto and felt the sudden change of force field around Shadow Clone. Naruto's expression of tension suddenly relaxed, and after exhaling a turbid breath, he murmured as if he was freed from countless pains. Damn, this B************ D finally took the first step successfully. Naruto hasn't understood anything yet. Iruka whispered in a low voice. He naturally couldn't hear it. After a long time no response from him, Naruto suddenly became nervous and asked nervously. Ms. Iruka, what should I do next? He didn't dare to mention whether there was any success. If Iruka directly said, go back to school, Naruto reckons that his entire life will be over. Iruka will be the best result if he doesn't mention it, regardless of success or failure. When his body trembled slightly because of anxiety, Iruka finally spoke. Okay, Naruto, keep your current state, you can open your eyes. Hearing this, Naruto breathed a sigh of relief, and then slowly opened his eyes. The next moment, he saw Shadow Clone standing in front of him with a look of astonishment, and his hand was placed in front of Shadow Clone's chest, maintaining his foundation. Occult. Naruto was taken aback and almost interrupted Chakra's output. Fortunately, Iruka's deterrent power was too strong. He didn't dare to defy, and instinctively continued the secret technique. If the secret technique loses his control, he has initially completed the free shadow. Clone will instantly turn into the natural wind and disappear completely. Ms. Iruka, is this? Iruka did not directly explain, but suddenly raised his hand. Accompanied by his movement, an earthy spear instantly rose from the ground, and then flew towards Naruto's shadow clone very fast. The next moment, Naruto still did not react. The blade of the earth gun that exudes a cold light passed through the shadow clone and stopped directly in front of him. However, the strange thing is that shadow clone seems to have been penetrated by the soil gun, but it has not disappeared. The feeling is not like being penetrated, it is more like the soil gun passing through a layer of phantom, and it has no texture. This is the effect of self-sufficiency. When Naruto felt something was wrong, Iruka finally opened Shikai. Shadow clone is now in a state of being at ease. The part that was traversed by the earth gun has been transformed into an air current, which invalidates the attack of the earth gun. At the same time, as long as the operator has enough ability, the part of the body that has been transformed into an air current can also be activated. Attack. Of course, if chakra is not enough to transform it back to its original state, the airflow will be completely naturalized, that is, that part of the body will completely disappear, which is also one of the risks of self-reliance. Chapter 157. That, Mr. Iruka, I still don't understand how I did it. Maintaining the basic secret technique, Naruto asked with a puzzled face. You don't need to think about it yourself. Iruka curled her lips, then pointed to Naruto's shadow clone, and said uncomfortably for some reason, let your shadow clone help you think. Hey, what do you mean? The color of doubt on Naruto's face became stronger, but Iruka didn't bother to explain in detail. He was patient and tortured by Naruto's showy head for so long. Now that he can stay here and continue to help Naruto practice freely. Restrained. Stop talking nonsense, get me off the shadow clone technique, now, immediately. Hearing that, Naruto started to act instinctively. The next moment, with two pops, the two shadow clone disappeared into the air at the same time. At the moment when the shadow clone technique was relieved, Naruto suddenly felt something in his mind. The shadow clone technique has an additional effect. The things experienced by the shadow clone will become experience. The experience will automatically be transferred to the body at the moment when the technique is lifted. You should feel it now. Feelings. Naruto raised his hand subconsciously, feeling the unspeakable sensation in his head, and couldn't help but nodded. Now he doesn't care much about the extra effects of shadow clone technique. Compared to this, he cares more about the information from shadow clone. Ms. Iruka, I think I can probably understand what you meant before. In other words, if you treat your body as air and use chakra to control it, you can realize what kind of personal reality and activate your freedom, right? Quote. Hearing this, Iruka almost burst into tears with excitement, resisting the soreness of his eyes. Iruka couldn't help but replied in a very pleased tone. It's not very accurate, but it probably means that. It's not easy. I can get Naruto's completely rusty head open a little. Iruka was almost not injured internally by him. Naruto was originally asked to prepare two shadow clones to prevent the first failure and to be able to adjust it in the shortest time. Try again. If it is unsuccessful, he really intends to give up. Fortunately, it is a good thing that the other shadow clone is completely useless. Now that Iruka doesn't plan to correct Naruto's biased notions, he is 100% sure that if he does this, he will end up vomiting blood with anger. What is the biggest difference between capable people and ordinary people? There is no doubt. Soul. The soul of the capable person is extremely tough, and the degree of reliance on the body will be less than that of ordinary people, but the effects caused by those differences are vastly different. The concept of inherent form is the most important thing to learn to be free. The so-called inherent form is the natural state of tangible objects that exist objectively under the planning of natural laws, such as people, plants, earth, air, etc. These are all natural things with absolute laws. Whether they are humans or other creatures, they will clearly recognize their existence. Stepping on the ground, looking up at the stars, touching other tangible substances, breathing air, and other life activities will make people realize the concept of existence. This is an instinct that ordinary people can't get rid of, but those with spiritual abilities are different. Because the degree of dependence on the body has been reduced. The capable person can break free from the constraints of the concept of inherent form, to a certain extent, and convert the intrinsic form into a variable form, just as mentioned before. The capable person through supernatural power, taking the spiritual domain as the intermediate transformation, through the planning of conscious thinking, distorting reality and creating personal reality, so as to realize the transformation from nothing to something. When the mind breaks through the limitations of the intrinsic form, and regards the body that can be fully controlled as the variable form, the reality of self can be freely distorted and transformed into a personal reality that is beneficial to the status quo, and the name is free. The meaning is to be able to freely realize the transformation from being to nothing, from nothing to being. The reason why Naruto can use Shadow Clone without knowing it is to let him unconsciously get rid of the limitations of inherent morphological concepts, and Shadow Clone can be regarded as part of his self to some extent. When Naruto uses Shadow Clone, this self is treated as air, and a large amount of chakra is directly used to completely transform it into air flow, and Shadow Clone will naturally realize its freedom passively. Of course, the types of forms that can be transformed are not completely unlimited. The forms that can be transformed can only be manifested in the spiritual realm. In other words, only the spiritual realm of the elemental system can apply the transformation to ultimate, and other types the spiritual realm, even if it can be aware of its inherent form, is meaningless. And what Naruto said, think of yourself as air, because his ability is related to air, so it doesn't matter if he understands this way, but if Sasuke understands this way, let alone activate it freely, I guess he won't even be able to hold back a fart. Advertisement. Now Iruka has completely given up the idea of giving Naruto a detailed explanation. As long as he can complete this practice without making a big mistake, Naruto can think whatever he likes. In order not to vomit blood from Naruto, Iruka has completely compromised. Now Naruto has been able to get rid of the conceptual limitations of the inherent form to a certain extent, and has achieved a meaningful transformation, and it has a powerful chakra itself. There should be no problem with the self-cultivation, and the rest is just that. Naruto, remember the feeling passed back by the shadow clone that was successfully freed just now. Take your body as air, and take the initiative to initiate the freezation of yourself. As long as you can initiate the initial freezation that the shadow clone passively realized just now, this time you are practicing even if it's done. Since Shadow Clone's experience and feelings have all been transmitted to his mind, Naruto probably now knows what he should do and can barely understand Iruka's meaning. He nodded with understanding, and thinking gradually appeared on his face. Color. Upon seeing this, Iruka finally breathed a sigh of relief. Damn, I'm exhausted. Well, let's try it now. Remember, it takes a lot of chakra to start the initial freezation. The refined chakra is divided into two parts, one is used to create personal reality, and the other is used to transform back to its original form. Don't deliberately control it. Chakra flows, allowing chakra to be released naturally, and at the same time seeing the body as a flow of air that can be freely transformed when activating abilities. Do you understand? Ming. I understand. Naruto took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down, but Iruka could still see obvious tension on his face. It's the first time to launch this risky technique of freezation. Even Sasuke estimated that it was not much better. Naruto's reaction was completely normal, but Iruka didn't expect Naruto to learn it all at once. Now let him launch it tentatively. It's just a test of his understanding of freedom. Snapped. Naruto suddenly folded his hands and quickly extracted a large amount of chakra. Suddenly, a dazzling blue light curtain appeared around Naruto's body. The huge chakra continued to surround it, making Naruto's aura suddenly rise. Chakra without deliberate control was inevitable. A part of the leaked, suddenly caused several cracks in the surrounding land, gradually spreading to the distance. Hoo. The gusty wind whistled, the sky was full of dust, the flying sand and the rocks, Iruka's eyes swaying back and forth, hidden by the gusty wind, gradually became serious. Secret technique, make it easy. Naruto yelled. The next moment, the spiritual realm was instantly connected to reality, the huge chakra ran wildly, and the power was activated rapidly. Then Naruto's body suddenly trembled slightly, and at this moment, several stones that were rolled up by the wind suddenly turned. Naruto flew away at the door of Naruto's face and just activated the secret technique. Before he could feel the changes in his body, Naruto was shocked, and subconsciously wanted to avoid it. However, he suddenly heard Iruka shouting loudly. Don't hide. Hearing this, Naruto stopped moving immediately and watched a few stones hit him. There's no after that. From Iruka's perspective, you can clearly see the stone flying directly through Naruto's head, and this also means Naruto barely succeeded in launching freedom for the first time. Why is it reluctant? Because, hey, this guy didn't remember what I said. It actually used the other part of chakra that was separated out to activate the freedom. A lot of chakra was wasted. Not to mention, the chakra needed for reverse transformation is definitely not enough. Fortunately, I have prepared Wan Fa Tianluo's inherent barrier in advance, otherwise it will really go away with the wind. Chapter 158. When the wind gradually dissipated and the dust completely dispersed, Iruka slowly put down the hands that were originally held together, wiped the sweat from his face, and suddenly exerted force under his feet. A man appeared on the ground and his clothes were tattered. Next to Naruto. Although Naruto has only some insignificant abrasions on his body, due to excessive consumption of chakra, he is severely deprived and directly loses consciousness. However, with his recovery ability from the mystery, it is estimated that he will be able to go to practice again tomorrow. It's really not worrying, this kid. Iruka sighed, bent down, picked up Naruto, and carried it on his shoulders like cargo. Fart Sasuke. One day, I will surpass you. Then, 10 years earlier than you. Get Iruka's approval. Become Hokage. Naruto, who was lying on Iruka's shoulder, murmured unconsciously, and Iruka couldn't help but smile. It is undoubtedly Sasuke that satisfies him most among all the students. Regardless of his qualifications, strength, way of thinking and many other evaluation criteria, Sasuke is the top one and the closest to his perfect work as a ninja teacher. In comparison, other students are far from Sasuke in other aspects except for their strength, especially the way of thinking. Sasuke, who has already touched the rudiment of the concept, is almost a century ahead. However, the only thing Iruka likes among students is Naruto. Many precious qualities such as self-confidence, strength, etc. are concentrated on him, making his personality shine with dazzling light all the time, although there is also mischief, crime obvious shortcomings such as the second, but it is because of these shortcomings that he appears real, not like Sasuke, because he is too good to appear illusory. When the figures of Iruka and Naruto disappeared completely, and in the Konoha Hokage building, third generation slowly stopped chakra output. Suddenly, the crystal ball on the table that had originally displayed the messy scene due to Naruto's rough practice suddenly dimmed. Come down. It is incredible that the young man named Umino Iruka can perform such an incredible practice. The speaker was wearing a red coat with dark gray linen inside, the word, oil, written on the forehead protector, and long white hair with a kabuki-like hairstyle, which easily gave the impression of a wretched uncle. There is a long red mark on the corner of his eyes, a tall man with wooden clogs. Through the crystal ball, Naruto was able to see the scene of being safe and sound when the stone was passed through his head when he started to free himself. With this effect that almost ignores all physical attacks, as long as the cost of the operation such as chakra's consumption is not very outrageous, this shushu can definitely be listed as one of the rare S-level ninjutsu, and Iruka, who can guide Naruto to practice this kind of powerful ninjutsu, knows that his strength is definitely not easy by thinking about it with his legs. It's a pity that there are very few people who have actually seen Iruka guide the practice. Only the third generation, the three Konoha executives and Izumi Mi. Even the elite ninjas of the Hokage faction like Kakashi and Anbu, the Hokage guardian, just know that Iruka is not as superficial. Simple, let alone those ordinary ninjas. Until now, I thought Naruto and the others could become so strong. It was the special training provided by the third generation. Iruka was just a Chunin teacher who supervised their training by relationship. Iruka's strength is unfathomable. Jiraiya, even if you were one of Sannin, you are probably not his opponent. Third generation took a puff of smoke habitually, and then slowly said. Hearing that, Jiraiya's face was not at all irritated because of being compared with a young man by third generation. Instead, he laughed boldly and said, ha ha ha, isn't that a good thing? Old man, you are here, too. I'm old enough, it's about time to step back from Hokage and let young people go up there, right? If I can, I want to try my best to train Iruka to become the next Hokage, but this is impossible. Jiraiya was stunned, with a look of doubt. Well, why? Does he have any problems? He is too lazy. Hearing such a simple answer, Jiraiya suddenly looked confused. What kind of reason is this? Third generation sighed and took another cigarette. His old face was full of regret and a bit depressed, and said helplessly. I once proposed to him to train him as the next Hokage, but he refused without hesitation. The reason was that he wanted to live a stable and peaceful life and didn't want to bear the fate of so many people. Advertisement. That's it. Sora has great power but no corresponding ambitions. Ha ha ha. A young man with a very character. Jiraiya smiled appreciatively. Seeing this, third generation couldn't help but shook his head. Only you who also like freedom can resonate with Iruka in this strange place, alas. You two who are qualified to succeed the next Hokage are not willing to help me take this heavy burden. In the village there is no young man who can hold the important task. As a result, my old man can only continue to do it. People who don't know think I depend on the position of Hokage. Jiraiya's face suddenly stiffened, and then she scratched her head awkwardly. Don't talk about this, old man, I'm coming back this time, you should know what it is for, right? Although I know that Jiraiya is changing the subject, this is indeed the business. Third generation originally just complained casually, but did not force Jiraiya to succeed Hokage. He nodded, with a clear look, but hesitated a little. After a while, he asked with certainty. It's for Minato's last wish. But is it too early to guide Naruto to use the power of Nine Tails? I was still hesitating when I came back, but judging from the information you gave me about Naruto and the video of Naruto's practice just now, I think the time is ripe. Jiraiya said decisively, and his tone was unquestionably determined. Hearing that, third generation thought for a while, and finally nodded. Well, you know more about this matter than I am. Since you said that, it should be okay, but this matter needs to be advanced in advance. Talk to Iruka. I know that Naruto is now carrying out a seemingly very important practice under his guidance. I will not disturb them in the past. You can just notify me when their practice is over. It's been a long time since I collected materials from Konoha. It's a bit nostalgic. The serious color on Jiraiya's face suddenly disappeared, and replaced by an extremely wretched aura. Feeling this nasty breath, third generation couldn't help but cough a few times, and said helplessly. Always do such boring things, you are still the same. The words did not stop Jiraiya's awkward behavior, and then third generation seemed to remember something suddenly, and solemnly reminded. But you are the best, pay attention to the impact, and it is best not to go to the most expensive hot spring shop on the hot spring street. N.Y. Third generation took out a file from the desk, opened it, and handed Jiraiya a picture of a female ninja printed with a female ninja, and said at the same time. She is Uchiha Izumi, one of the 3 survivors of the Uchiha clan. She is now the elite Jonin of the village. Of course, this level may not be a big deal to you, but there is one thing that even you can't ignore, that is. Speaking of this, the face of third generation suddenly showed a deep look of helplessness. She lives with Iruka now. Although they have not publicly acknowledged it, they can basically tell that they are lovers from their usual behavior and mutual understanding, and she seems to like hot springs so much. Did I remind you? Looking at the information in his hand, especially noting the line, very close to Uchiha Crescent Moon and Umino Iruka, in the remarks, Jiraiya suddenly frowned. Iruka actually has a relationship with the Uchiha clan, it's troublesome. Jiraiya had a headache. Of course, the reason for his headache was not that he might bump into Izumi while peeping, but a certain name he often heard when collecting various information outside. The Scarlet Girl, Chapter 159 Jiraiya. Boom. With a burst of white smoke, Naruto's shadow clone completely disappeared in the air. When the experience of shadow clone turned into experience and transferred to Naruto's mind with a tired face, Iruka not far away took out 5 scrolls again. Wanfa Tianluo. Countless ink-colored words appeared again, forming a huge barrier around Naruto's body. After Naruto digested the shadow clone experience and opened his eyes, he heard Iruka's lazy voice. Well, Naruto, after these 10 days of cultivation, the experience accumulated by shadow clone so many times should be enough to make you feel completely at home with the master, and then use the ontology to launch a trial at home. Hearing that, Naruto hesitated for a while, and then asked, Ms. Iruka, how far should I be to become a complete master? Completely master. You don't even have a master at the beginning, so you're so embarrassed to ask this, so there must be a limit to it, right? Iruka gave Naruto a white look, but she explained patiently. The real power of self-improvement is that it can avoid all tangible attacks. At the same time, the part that is transformed into a spiritual manifestation will be attacked by the caster's will. Since its essence is the body itself, it is completely affected by the caster. Control, and it will be stronger than the energy transformed by chakra. This is the final stage of the cultivation of freedom. You are still far away. Naruto nodded without understanding. Not enough. Iruka knew he was pretending to understand by looking at him, so he couldn't help but sighed slightly. To be honest, Iruka originally came to this world and always felt that shopping with Kwanmei or Crescent Moon to watch movies is the most tortuous thing, and if you can avoid it, he can avoid it, but now he has discovered something more tortuous than shopping with them. That is to guide Naruto's practice alone. While guiding Naruto's practice these days, Iruka feels that he is doing a patient practice. If he chooses the same for shopping with Izumi and guiding Naruto's practice, he will definitely choose the former. Ah, it's so tormenting. Iruka raised her head and looked at the blood-red setting sun at the edge of the high mountains in the distance, and whispered. It's getting late. I'll talk about the details about the friazation later. Now you can try to start the friazation first. Naruto nodded, and then quickly extracted chakra. The next moment, a light blue light suddenly appeared on his body. Compared with the dazzling blue chakra light curtain 5 days ago, Naruto is now mobilizing chakra is obviously much less. He now probably knows the minimum amount of chakra needed to activate freedom, and he won't just use all the chakra that can be extracted in one breath, as he did at the beginning. The result of increasing the understanding of freedom. Secret technique, make it easy. As chakra turned around, Naruto's body gradually became trance, giving people a feeling of nonsense. Compared with the huge movement of flying sand and rocks when friazation was first launched 5 days ago, now only the grass next to Naruto swayed back and forth with the unnatural wind from him. Obviously Naruto has mastered the way chakra used when friazation was launched. Although Naruto is not as smart as Sasuke's, he can use Shadow Clone to make up for this shortcoming. And only he has a huge amount of chakra can use Shadow Clone this kind of expensive ninjutsu one after another. If you change to someone else, let alone separate out hundreds of Shadow Clones in a row, it would be very difficult to separate out 10, and the duration is definitely not as long as Naruto's Shadow Clone, and only Naruto, who is physically strong enough to resemble a monster, can withstand the Shadow Clone practice. The fatigue accumulated at the time. Advertisement. This is the only place that Iruka has been fortunate to have taught Naruto to practice for so long. If Naruto doesn't have the unique training method that suits him, Iruka really doesn't know how to teach him to be comfortable. Seeing that Naruto was clearly in a state of being at ease at this time, Iruka made a casual move. The next moment, a soil gun suddenly rose from the ground, and then with a swish, it flew towards Naruto's front door extremely fast. Even if the friazation is activated, Naruto subconsciously wants to avoid it. This is a human instinct to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages, but his body has just moved, and then he realized that this is the effect of Iruka's experimental friazation. Immediately resisted the uneasiness in his heart, and stood still in place. Chi. Potential energy was transformed into kinetic energy, and speed was transformed into strength. The soil gun instantly penetrated through Naruto's forehead and pierced straight on the grass behind him. The entire gun body released residual kinetic energy through continuous shaking. However, the strange thing is that, obviously the forehead is penetrated, there is no trace of bright red color on the soil gun, and there is no tragic scene of brain and other body fluids mingled around. Naruto stands quietly as if there is nothing wrong, except for a trace on his face. There was nothing unusual outside of the peace of mind that was the rest of his life. Chakra consumption and secondary phenomena have been reduced a lot, and the friazation is also very stable. There should be no problem with positively launching the friazation. Then, the next step is the last step. Iruka squeezed his chin and murmured softly. Finally, he suddenly raised his head, and then his hands suddenly closed, maintaining the mark of ninjutsu that could be activated at any time, and then said to Naruto. Naruto, now release the self-containment, that is, reverse transformation. I will repeat the method again, which is to recall the state of using the body in ordinary times. If you understand, let's start. Naruto nodded. Before practicing through Shadow Clone, he had practiced the way to relieve himself, but the goal was changed from the original Shadow Clone to the current deity. I saw Naruto slowly closing his eyes, and his consciousness gradually connected to the spiritual realm. In the next moment, the blue light surrounding his body that had been dimmed because of the use of freedom suddenly poured into his illusory body, tightly then, Naruto's trance suddenly diminished and gradually became solid. After a while, the grass that could pass through his feet back and forth was stepped on by him again. The reverse transformation is completed, and the freedom is completely lifted. Upon seeing this, Iruka's originally nervous expression suddenly relaxed, and then the hands that were folded together slowly became the seal. When the last seal was completed, Iruka suddenly gave a soft cry, resolve. With the activation of this ninjutsu, the inherent barriers set up to be safe are instantly lifted, and countless ink texts flow slowly like a stream of water to the scrolls suspended in the air. After the recovery is completed, the 5 scrolls are automatically closed, and Iruka's fingers are slightly with a click, all the scrolls floated over, and finally returned to the backpack that Iruka casually placed aside. After doing all this, Iruka seemed to be relieved and said to Naruto, who was waiting for his next instruction not far away. Well, Naruto, this is the end of this practice. Congratulations, you have become a master at the beginning. Hey, it's over. Upon hearing this, Naruto was stunned for a moment, and then asked a little uncertainly. Ms. Iruka, do you mean that today's practice is over or this practice is over? Of course this practice is over. Iruka curled his lips, and said in an angry tone, the purpose of this practice was originally to let you learn to be at ease, but not to make you a complete master. Now you can perfectly activate freedom. As long as you practice more frequently, as for the next stage of self-cultivation, it is not that I underestimate you. With your current ability, it is not a question of how big the risk is at all, but it is simply impossible to complete. I didn't underestimate me. Isn't this completely undermining me? Naruto murmured very uncomfortably. He was 100% sure that if Sasuke asked like this, what he got was absolutely the opposite. Answer. Chapter 160. What are you whispering about? No, it's nothing, Mr. Iruka, you are so worried. Naruto didn't dare to express his dissatisfaction. After these 10 days of extraordinarily hard training, he found that Iruka would become very irritable when he was alone in instructing him in the practice. As the saying goes, the person who knows the current affairs is a handsome, even Naruto with a brain. After being taught so many times, I finally learned how to adapt. Iruka, who was finally freed from this torture of practice, was in a good mood and was too lazy to care about Naruto. He threw the backpack containing Hinata's loving bento directly at Naruto, and then whispered. Let's go. I'm starving. Hinata is so true, how can that portion be eaten by two people? As a girl, I'm so careless. Naruto, when you have time, you can tell her and let her give it to someone else next time. When preparing a bento, prepare a little bit more. So I said that Hinata prepared it for me alone. Naruto took the backpack and felt the protest from his stomach because Iruka had robbed 80% of the food. A grievance suddenly appeared on his small face, full of resentment, looking at the back of Iruka walking in front of him. However, he could only vent a few words in the bottom of his heart, Teacher Gaihu. After walking for half an hour, the two returned to the village. It seems that I feel that it is unkind to snatch Hinata's loving bento prepared for Naruto at noon. Iruka suddenly said to Naruto arrogantly. Now, Naruto, it seems that I haven't invited you to eat in a long time. I'm generous today, I will invite you no matter what you want to eat. Hearing that, Naruto suddenly looked at Iruka with a strange look, his eyes narrowed into a seam, which matched his unique six-paths beard perfectly. That expression, how weird it looks. Hey, Mr. Iruka is inviting you. I was so happy to say. That's what I said, but Naruto's tone didn't have a trace of sincerity, full of perfunctory meaning. Ahem. Iruka coughed a little embarrassingly, but he only reacted to this level on his face, so naturally he wouldn't be shaken to the point of apologizing to Naruto. Okay, I'm grateful for suggesting where to go to eat. It's a reward for your completion of this cultivation practice. This is the first time your teacher and I reward a student. By the way, Sasuke has never received this treatment. Quote. Hearing this, Naruto's face finally returned to normal. I want to eat ramen. Since graduation, I have been practicing with Hinata whenever I have time. She always prepares lunch for two people. I haven't eaten eel ramen for a long time. I miss the taste of eel ramen. What? After hearing Naruto's answer, Iruka's face suddenly became hesitant. To be honest, I don't want to go. Since Izumi's departure, Iruka, who is so lazy that she has lost her cooking skills, tried the craft of Crescent Moon once and made up his mind that she would never try poison for her again in her life, and she knew her cooking skills as Crescent Moon for the time being. During the few days he lived at home, he always changed the way to pull him out. It seemed that his staying at home would affect the operation of the earth. Thanks to this, his lunch and dinner were settled outside. However, after she obeyed the agreement and took Sasuke to leave the village on a one-month training journey, Iruka returned to the situation where she had to search for food alone in order to survive. At the beginning, he naturally chose Eel Ramen Restaurant, which he always thought tasted very good, but later he couldn't stand it and changed the place. Every time I go to Eel Ramen, I don't know that Wei Mao always encounters Calamus. Even if the Calamus is not at first, Uncle Yeel disappears inexplicably for a short time, the Calamus will sweat profusely before he finishes eating and leaves. He appeared at the door of the store, and then had to finish the ramen in the strange eyes of the two of them. As a result, he didn't taste the taste of the originally delicious ramen, as if he was chewing wax. Shangpu is okay. He will only stand quietly. Although his gaze is a little weird, it will not make him repulse. The key to the problem is Uncle Yeel. Not only his gaze is strange, but he is always eating noodles. Ask some inexplicable questions about what color do you like, what kind of food do you like, and what type of women do you like. Advertisement. This ramen is so good. What's wrong? Mr. Iruka, is there any problem? Seeing that Iruka's face was a little weird, Naruto couldn't help but ask with some confusion. It's nothing. Iruka shook his head, and then continued with Naruto's suspicious eyes. I have been eating ramen recently, which caused some problems with the digestive system. I don't want to eat greasy food for the time being. Let's change place. I remember this. There is a barbecue restaurant nearby. A man with a beard. Asuma invited me to eat it once, and it tastes pretty good. Hearing that, Naruto immediately looked at Iruka with disdain. Ms. Iruka, didn't you say that you don't want to eat greasy food? Although I know I don't have Sasuke and Shikamaru and Shino is smart, I don't even know what grilled meat looks like, right? You completely treat me as a fool. Forehead. Iruka's face froze, and she didn't expect that she would be speechless one day when Naruto retorted her. Could it be that Naruto is born with a permanent aura of mental retardation that ignores the enemy and me all the time? Will I be lowered if I get along with this idiot for a long time? After shaking his head and shaking off the inexplicable thoughts in his mind, Iruka suddenly raised his hand, then put it on Naruto's blonde hair and rubbed it vigorously, and said impatiently. Stop talking nonsense, I'll be the host and I'll be the master, do you still want to eat a free dinner? Whispering sound. If you can't say it, just do it, Mr. Iruka is really such a ghost no matter what. Naruto broke free of Iruka's big hand, thinking very uncomfortably, but he didn't dare to say it directly. The ghost knew what the ghost teacher who could not change his face and put a heavy hand on the child would do after saying it, but it is certain that his dinner must be at his own expense. Well, since it's your treat, then naturally you have the final say. That's right. Iruka nodded in satisfaction, and then took Naruto to a rotisserie based on memory. As soon as she walked in, Iruka saw a familiar figure in a corner, and immediately gestured, that is my acquaintance, to the waiter who came by, and then turned towards that with her understanding eyes. The figure walked. Listen to me, Konohamaru, you are not yet at the age to be interested in women. Reading those unscrupulous books and magazines is really ignorant. It insults your identity as the grandson of Lord Third Hokage, and I am absolutely shameless to act. It won't be allowed, so hurry up and put a limited edition Yuko photo album and the like. The speaker was a man with a dark blue turban on his head and a pair of small sunglasses on his thin face, but before he could finish his words, a 7 or 8 year old boy sitting in front of him looked contemptuous. Interrupted his speech. I said that I was given to me to practice Naruto's brother, who can instantly defeat Grandpa Hokage's seduction. And Ebisu-sensei, how do you know the name of the big sister on the cover of this photo album? This is not important, Konohamaru, listen to me. A panic flashed across the face of the man named Ebisu. He was about to say something, but at this moment his words were interrupted again by Iruka who came over. And I know it's a limited edition, Mr. Ebisu, you are really knowledgeable. Hearing Iruka's familiar ridicule, Ebisu's face suddenly stiffened, and then turned his head like a puppet mechanically. The next moment, he saw Iruka's knife with a meaningful smile. Scarface, and Naruto who looked at him contemptuously like Konohamaru. Oh, good evening, the pervert teacher who was killed by the harem technique that I developed casually, chapter 161. Naruto's words seemed to give Ebisu a knowing blow, whose face had become so stiff by the joint attack of Iruka and Konohamaru, his whole body lost its color, and it was completely pale as his life. Upon seeing this, Iruka shrugged, and then sat down beside him, while Naruto sat down beside Konohamaru on the opposite side. If anyone in Konoha has the best relationship with Iruka besides Izumi, it is definitely Ebisu. Although Kakashi is as familiar with Iruka, it is still a bit worse than Ebisu. As for others, the same guy, Red, Asuma, Shiranui Genma and others who belong to the confidant of the third generation old man have a very normal relationship with Iruka. There is no other reason why Iruka has such a good relationship with Ebisu. Oh, no, it's just the same interest. Guy is a weird uncle who likes to eulogize youth and a muscular idiot. Iruka usually gets goosebumps when talking to him because of his mentally disabled declaration of youth. Hong is a very troublesome type of woman in Iruka's eyes, and Asuma is almost 30 and looks like an innocent boy. When he is mentioned about his relationship with Hong, he blushes, which is not the same as Iruka's personality. It's too far, and he feels that his single dog has a natural repulsion with these two dog abusers who are gradually falling in love. It is better not to get involved or try not to get involved. But I don't know the Tukao man in Huo Xuanjian. Iruka can only haha. As for the ordinary ninjas, Iruka is worthy of them without knocking them sap because of their contempt. How could it be possible to communicate with them with hot faces and cold A? Konohamaru had a good impression of Iruka because he admired Naruto, so he greeted Iruka politely. Although I know that Iruka, like Ebisu, is a serious person who likes to read 18-band books, but at least Iruka looks at it with integrity, while Ebisu is always talking about incorruptible shame, but Naruto is one of them. The boring wolf of the harem technique smoothed out. Ms. Iruka, why are you here? After a while, when Iruka's grilled meat was served, Ebisu recovered from the gray. As if to change the subject, he looked at Iruka in surprise and asked with a puzzled look. Aren't you supposed to eat at home this time? In Ebisu's impression, Iruka has the same interests as him, but the situation is very different. He is a 28-year-old single man. He has never touched a woman's hand except his enemies. He is a typical tragic man. But Iruka is different. Although his reputation is very poor, he has a right. He is so good that he has taken care of him at home, to save him face outside, to go to the battlefield, to the kitchen, whether it is appearance, strength, or femininity. She is a girl who is so good, Uchiha Spring Beauty. Yuyu Tomomi Izumi, a perfect girl, willingly stays beside Iruka. No matter how Ebisu sees Iruka, he is a winner in life. Since he is a winner in life, he should accompany his partner to enjoy a loving dinner at home at this time. Although Uchiha Izumi will have time to perform tasks, but with her strength, she can complete the task in 2 days at most. Before going out, she will definitely leave the food at home that can be eaten by heating. Iruka does not need to go. Just eat out. Oh, Kwanmei has to go out for a long time because of a troublesome long-term mission, so I can only come out for food. Iruka responded casually while holding the raw meat on the plate and grilling it. It doesn't seem to be a simple task. It's not difficult, it's just more troublesome. After Iruka consciously finished his work, he and Ebisu chatted with each other. Of course, in front of Naruto and Konohamaru, they would naturally not talk about adult topics. Time passed by. When there were more and more empty plates on the seats, the sky was dark outside the window. Through the windows, you could see the various lanterns lit by the entrances of the shops on both sides of the street. Nah, Teacher Ebisu, I have something to ask you for help. Advertisement. After stopping the calorie intake, Iruka burped full, and then rubbed his visibly bulged belly and said to Ebisu. Please forgive me to refuse. Before Iruka could make a request, Ebisu refused, and then his face suddenly showed unshakable determination. Mr. Iruka, I have been helping you for more than a month, and continue to do so. I really want to change from an elite tutor to an ordinary ninja teacher. It's a matter of my future. No matter what you say this time, I won't help you anymore. Please follow the agreed upon date. Go to school honestly in 3 days. Don't rush to refuse. There is no discussion about this matter. Ebisu's thin face still did not waver. Mr. Iruka, please take your responsibility as a teacher. Bang. Iruka, who was interrupted, suddenly slapped the table with a hard slap, causing the plate on top to make a clanging sound, almost falling down. Can you let me finish talking? Feeling Iruka's aura that seems to be able to directly explode his heart, the waiter not far away suddenly looked like a chill, and Ebisu was even more stunned. Actually, it is not impossible to consider. As long as conditions permit. Ebisu's thin face even skipped the steps of shaking. It seemed that he would agree no matter what Iruka said. It was not in the resolute state just now. Originally, I just wanted to ask you to help Naruto control chakra. Now I changed my mind. Iruka kept that black face, his eyes were full of danger, but no one noticed a flash in the corner of his eye. And the cunning. Teacher Ebisu, as compensation for your rudeness, I will ask you for the courses of the ninja school in the next 2 months. Anyway, your most important task is to teach Konohamaru. It happens that Konohamaru is in my class. I think, so things that are logical, you wouldn't refuse, would you? Quote. Ebisu's face was a little stiff, as if he wanted to make the last resistance, but Iruka suddenly stood up, looked at him condescendingly, and said with a more terrifying aura than before. You will agree. Good. Good. Naruto looked at the super humiliating Ebisu with a disdainful face, and then said very dissatisfied. Hey, Mr. Iruka, this guy can't even beat me, how can I recognize him as my instructor? And my opinion. Before he could finish speaking, Iruka suddenly raised his brows and swept towards Naruto with his aura. Naruto, who felt his fierce aura, stopped talking, and changed his face at a speed almost equal to that of Ebisu. I'm just kidding. Humph. Iruka snorted, and then moved away. Haki's full appearance made the waiter not dare to stop even if he knew he hadn't checked out. Naruto shouted, Iruka teacher, wait for me, and followed up. But Ebisu could only look at the pile of empty dishes on the table in Konohamaru's contemptuous eyes, crying without tears. I made friends accidentally. Chapter 162. Ms. Iruka, why do you have to let me accept the guidance of the pervert teacher? For Iruka, the best way to relax and comfort yourself after training is to soak in hot springs, so after bidding farewell to Ebisu, who was frightened by him, he took Naruto to the hot spring street. Although I don't have Kwanmei's obsession to go to hot springs when things are alright, Iruka also likes to soak in hot springs, but I don't have Kwanmei's exquisite attention to going to the most expensive place every time. Although Ebisu's personality is not very good, he is indeed a real elite tutor. In terms of basic teaching, few people in Konoha can match him, and it is precisely because his teaching ability particularly highlights his talents. Being a special Jonin, Naruto, what you lack most is the foundation, especially the chakra control. Let alone Sasuke, you are so much worse than others. Do you want this weakness to accompany you for the rest of your life? Iruka leaned comfortably on the cobblestone floor at the edge of the hot spring, squinting, and said casually. To be honest, he really only wanted Ebisu to help guide Naruto on how to improve chakra's control. After all, his chakra control itself is as bad as a dung, so he can't teach it at all, it's just that I saw way later. Bisho suddenly mentioned that there were only 3 days left in the last appointment to help with substitute classes, so he extorted him by the way. He didn't expect the results to be surprisingly good, so simply he got another 2 months of vacation. For Iruka, nothing is more pleasurable than paid vacation. But, how can your strength be improved if you are guided by a guy who is weaker than yourself? Naruto's face was full of annoyance, apparently still agonizing over Ebisu's weak and scumbag strength that was overthrown by any of his own harem techniques. Moreover, I don't think the control of chakra is very important, I am chakra. Control is just average, didn't you also learn to be comfortable? Even Sasuke can't compare to me. Correct it. Iruka tilted his head back, covered his eyes with a drenched towel, supported the balance of the body with his arms, and said lazily. You have just completed the first stage of self-reliance. You have learned to be self-reliant. It is far from complete master self-reliance. True self-reliance can consume a small amount of chakra in a very short time to make any part of the body effective. Instead of having to use a large amount of chakra to completely transform the entire body, whether it is the time to activate the operation or the consumption of chakra, the role of initial freedom in actual combat is very limited. So, Mr. Iruka, you quickly start to guide me in the second stage of cultivation. After such a slow practice, when will I be able to catch up with Sasuke? Facing the anxious Naruto, Iruka still kept the original posture of lying on the edge of the hot spring as if he had enjoyed ultimate enjoyment, unmoved at all. Cultivation is not anxious, and, haven't I said it? With your current strength, you can't do the second stage of cultivation at all. When your chakra control reaches the standard, you don't need to say, I will take the initiative to help you. Upon hearing this, Naruto suddenly asked in confusion, What does the second stage of cultivation have to do with chakra control? Teacher Iruka, didn't you say that learning freely only needs enough chakra? Yes, the only condition for learning to be free is the amount of chakra. Don't you have learned to be free now? But when did I say that you only need enough chakra to learn to be free? Advertisement. Hearing Iruka's natural tone, Naruto's face suddenly stiffened, and then he saw Iruka suddenly raising his right hand, raising his index finger as if to explain something. The self-cultivation is divided into 3 stages. The first stage is the preliminary master's self-realization, which is to use a huge chakra to transform the whole body into a manifestation of the spiritual realm. The condition for the cultivation is that the amount of chakra meets the standard. As he said, Iruka raised a second finger, like a scissors hand that needs to be shown when taking pictures while traveling. The second stage is partial freedom. According to the attack to be received, determine the part to use the freedom. The most intuitive benefit is that it can greatly reduce the consumption of chakra. At the same time, because the scope of the freedom is relatively small, the activation time will be reduced accordingly. The standard for training at this stage is chakra control. You are too far away from the standard deviation that can be practiced. Even Sasuke can't reach this standard. It is estimated that only Sakura and Hinata with the strongest chakra control have reached the standard. If you are free, you might as well ask them more for advice. When he heard that Sasuke was not up to the standard like him, Naruto's gloomy expression suddenly relaxed a lot. As for the final stage, it is the complete master's self-cultivation. Not only the activation time is extremely short, but the transformed part can also be transformed into the caster's blade to attack the enemy. Since it uses the energy transformed into the master, it is used to activate the technique. The power is very strong, and the condition required for this stage of cultivation is to have a complete master chakra nature transformation. Don't ask me what chakra nature transformation is, that is the skill that Jonin can master. Ask your teacher Kakashi. I'm just a little chunin, I don't understand such tall things. Iruka can know what Naruto wants to ask without opening his eyes. Looking at his lazy appearance, Naruto, who was about to speak, suddenly curled his lips unhappy. I see, chakra control, right. I will honestly follow the pervert teacher to practice, I'm really upset, I actually want to practice with a guy who is weaker than myself. To be honest, Ebisu's strength is really average, and he is a little bit stronger than the elite Chunin. What he is best at is to lay the foundation for students, so his basic kunai throwing skills and basic chakra use are particularly powerful, but other than that besides, he has no bright spots at all. Naturally, he is not as good at wind style and can freely use air currents to attack Naruto, whose strength is infinitely close to ordinary Jonin. Time passed by in this rare peace, when Naruto felt that it was time to leave, and was thinking of getting up. Speaking of it, I am more concerned about your growth in another aspect than the strength level of cultivation, after all. Iruka suddenly stretched out her hand, took off the towel on her face and threw it aside, then straightened up, looking at the puzzled Naruto with a serious expression on her face. In terms of ninjutsu, physique, and illusion, I have basically not given you any guidance, and the secret technique that I give you is just that I want to use this method to prove my professional value, only through various methods to trigger you thinking, guiding you to summarize conclusions, and letting you have your own ideas, is the real teaching content for me as a guide and as your teacher, so. The corner of Iruka's mouth raised slightly, revealing an inexplicable smile. Naruto, I will not care too much about your qualifications in terms of strength, nor will I pay too much attention to your growth rate in this area. Teachers all hope that their teaching can fully realize their due value in the students, the experience of the country of Poland. It's been so long since I left the question. It's almost time to tell me the answer. I want to know if you, as one of the students who bear my expectations, have really grown up in the areas I expect. Chapter 163 3 Stages. I'm sorry, Mr. Iruka. Naruto lowered his head sadly, and said in a low tone. I don't know how to think about those complicated things. I only act according to my own thoughts. Therefore, Mr. Iruka, I still don't have any clues about the ideas you mentioned before. Hearing that, Iruka just shrugged his shoulders, and there was no disappointment on his face. After all, he had no hope of Naruto, but Sasuke's growth gave him a big surprise. On a whim, he wanted to see if Naruto could give him a little surprise too. Naruto has made the best progress. It is nothing if there is no progress. After all, he has only graduated for 4 months, and he has not been exposed to the real ninja world. His life is only at the beginning stage and he has not experienced any major changes. His thinking is just ordinary. That's the level of a 12-year-old boy. And Sasuke experienced the scourge of genocide at the age of 7, and all his family members died in the hands of his own brother. Such a big change, coupled with the inherently intelligent and strengthened thinking under the influence of the spiritual realm, made Sasuke completely unable to use the normal 12 measured by the thinking patterns of year-old children. It is precisely because of this that he was able to touch the prototype of that level in such a short time. It is estimated that in a short time, his concept will be completely born in the experience of gradual enrichment or a major change. At that time, it will be almost perfect for Iruka. Don't show such an expression. Not growing is a good thing in a sense. Naruto looked at Iruka in surprise, he really didn't expect that Iruka would be comforting. Although Naruto's eyes sting a bit, Iruka didn't care about him. He suddenly stood up, tightened the towel around his waist, and walked toward the changing room without looking back. True growth is always accompanied by pain. The vast majority of the strong have heart-wrenching experiences. The heart of the strong is the spoils obtained after conquering this pain. So, Naruto, when you really grow up, it means that you have probably lost something that is important to you. Cherish the present, and cherish this ungrowth happiness. Iruka's tone was very light, but watching Iruka's fading back, Naruto somehow felt a sense of sadness in his heart. Under the cold moonlight, an extremely agile figure shuttled back and forth among more than a dozen big men in different clothes, flashing a few penetrating cold light from time to time, and every cold light appeared, it was bound to be accompanied by a scream, some even he fell to the ground without even screaming, and was completely silent. When the moonlight shone on that figure's cold face, the flow of time seemed to slow down a lot. She was a girl about 18 or 9 years old. She was wearing a black dress. The back of her dress was engraved with the family emblem of the family that once shook the entire ninja world. Her long black hair was tied into a waist-length ponytail with a red ribbon, and she held a handful of 5. The shaku long taito, the blade that exudes a chill, reflects a pair of scarlet pupils, and its sensitive movements are like ghosts in the night, constantly harvesting the lives of enemies. It's Konoha's Scarlet Moon. This woman is really not an ordinary strong. I really want to hold a grand funeral for her. On a large tree about 200 meters away from the battlefield where the battle can be clearly observed, 2 figures hiding their entire bodies in black kabuto hats stood quietly on the trunk, and the tall figure standing on the left used one. This is the peculiar way of speaking. Hey, she is the younger sister of Lord Crescent Moon, do you think you are qualified to give her a funeral? The night breeze was blowing, and under the constantly swaying kabuto hat, you could vaguely see the evil lips with lipstick gently raising. By the way, didn't the organization have 2 newcomers coming to the organization some time ago? I heard that they had a good relationship with Uchiha Izumi past, that is to say they have experience in combating knife extraction, right? Thunderya, why don't you say Lord Crescent Moon sent them to perform this mission? Seemingly being distracted by the companion next to him, Leia let out a bit of discomfort. Advertisement. I don't bother to care about the leader's ideas. After speaking, Thunder suddenly bent down, picked up a dead ninja on the ground and put it on his shoulders. Uchiha Izumi's mission goal has been reached, and the sword drawing technique has also been seen. Let's go, we should almost go back to discuss the next action plan. Hearing this, the petite figure suddenly turned around, and looked at Lei Ya's back and complained. It's really hard to team up with a guy like you who doesn't understand wit. It seems that next time I see Lord Crescent Moon, I have to tell her about this. She is a woman, she will definitely understand me, and then let the boy named Bai who came to team up with me, giggling, maybe we can have a vigorous sister-in-law relationship. Not good, I got excited. Speaking of the end, she suddenly twisted, Leia curled her mouth, and then slammed her feet, ignoring her comrades, and a few of them disappeared completely into the night. Time flies in a hurry. It has been more than 10 days since the last time Naruto coached Naruto. Tomorrow will be the day of the official trial of Chunin exam. However, this official trial does not have the tension of the past. At least Naruto and the others do not have it. In order to celebrate the discharge of Sakura from the hospital, you can tell by yelling and organizing a group to eat barbecue to celebrate. In fact, they are really not nervous. Of the 10 people who participated in the formal trials, they packed 7 places. The remaining 3 places are Sand Shinobi's Gaara team. The strength shown in the preliminary selection of Temari and Kankuro is not at all. It may be their opponent. The most threatening opponent of Gaara is Sasuke, which means that the 6 of them either played easily and abused the remaining 2 people, or they played with their peers as usual, and the competition is only as long as the point is reached. It's weird that they can get nervous. During this period of time, Iruka was at ease. There was only Xiao Hei at home. There was no door slamming sound like Kwanmei's timed alarm clock, and there was no clever calculations of the Crescent Moon, and he also got his favorite, Intimate Paradise, series all the time. The author of Jiraiya has several autographs and the latest editions of books that are not yet on sale. This day is simply blissful. However, when night fell, Iruka, who had just watched the unreleased version of Intimate Paradise, was about to go out for food and suddenly heard 2 chirps. The next moment he suddenly felt his shoulders sink. When he looked over, I saw a sturdy ninja standing on his shoulders, and beside its dark yellow legs was a note bound by a conspicuous red ribbon. Isn't this Izumi's summoning beast? Iruka suspiciously took the letter paper on Genin's eagle's leg, and then, the ninja suddenly turned into white smoke and disappeared into the air with a bang, which also proved that it was a summoning beast and not a ninja for general communication. When Iruka opened the letter paper and saw the messy handwriting on it, his face suddenly changed, and a strong eager color appeared on the face of the scar. The next moment, I saw him throw the letter paper aside, and then quickly extracted chakra. Simultaneous one-handed printing. Forbearance, refraction technique. The activation of ninjutsu caused the air around Iruka to shake a few times, and then his figure disappeared into the air so strangely. With a muffled sound of bang, the wooden floor suddenly appeared several cracks, followed by the curtains not far away suddenly swayed violently, seeming to be raged by the wind caused by something flying over and over at extreme speed. And the letter paper that Iruka casually tossed aside finally fell to the ground at this time, facing up, and I saw a line of words written in disorderly handwriting on it. Mr. Iruka, come to Wuming Valley in the country of the river to save me Izumi. After getting along for so long, Iruka knows that Izumi's handwriting is very delicate and would never be so scribbled under normal circumstances, and this also shows that Izumi is in a very bad situation when writing the letter for help, and even this point of free time is exchanged with countless prices. Coming. It is also because of this that Iruka is rare and anxious, so anxious that it is useless to control the object flying, and directly flies towards the country of the river with the flying technique. Chapter 164. A huge valley that seems to be surrounded by fog all the year round, with a visibility of less than 7 meters. Izumi endured the intense dizziness caused by excessive physical exertion, forcibly extracted chakra, and then raised the dachi in his hand. The next moment, a strong dark blue light burst out of his body. The violent energy made the blade tremble at high frequency, and the handle quickly rubbed against Kwanmei's palm. In less than 2 breaths, Kwanmei's white palms leaked bright red blood. Izumi did not let go, because once let go, it means that she will lose the last hope of alive, and the person who can push her to this level. Oh, have you finally given up resistance? Master Cthulhu would like the blood of the Uchiha clan, right? With the sound of footsteps, 2 vague figures gradually walked out of the thick fog, appearing in the eyes of Kwanmei's scarlet Sharingan, 2 tall men wearing a large cloak of red clouds on a black background. One of them opened the chest of the greed cloak, revealing a strong chest. Behind his back was a red 3-bladed scythe, gray hair, and a forehead protector from Tengen village on his neck, as can be seen from the scratches in the forehead protector. He is a traitor. The other person hid the whole body in the large cloak, revealing the head wrapped in gray cloth, and the black mask covers the lower half of his face. The only part that can be seen is a pair of weird dark green eyes with red background and Taki Shinobu. The forehead protector of the village rebels. The large cloak of the man carrying the sickle was broken everywhere, and the hem of the lower right corner was cut off, revealing that the bottom was sewn by some kind of fine thread, and the roots of the thighs still oozing bloodline. It seemed that it had been a tragic experience. During the battle, bloodline Madara, the whole person looked embarrassed. However, it just looked nothing. His face didn't show a trace of weakness after being injured. On the contrary, he looked radiant. It seemed that pain was the best enjoyment for him. Seeing the 2 people walking by, Kwanmei's eyes instantly condensed. After feeling that all the chakra that could be extracted now was imported into the Taito, she immediately swung the Taito that burst out with blue light at the 2 men without hesitation. Down. Sword. A sword collapsed. Click. Along with Kwanmei's swing of the sword, 3 beams of azure blue sword lights flew towards the 2 of them with a strong sound of breaking through the air. Wherever they passed, the ground was full of dense ruts, extremely high. The frequency even caused the surrounding air to tremble violently, constantly making scalp-numbing, buzzing sounds. If it were an average person, the eardrum would have ruptured and lost hearing because of this high-frequency vibration. But facing this terrifying sword light, it is obviously not an ordinary person. Hidan. Yes. The man named Hidan murmured a few times, but he walked in front of Kakuzu, and then raised the scythe in his hand while making a strange cry, and slammed it down against the sword with a clam. Zzz. The sickle and the sword light fought violently together, immediately sparking countless sparks. I don't know what substance the blood-red sickle is made of, and it is safe under the high-frequency sword light that can cut off almost everything. However, this does not mean that he easily blocked Kwanmei's attack. Click. The sound of something being broken, Hidan suddenly screamed sorrowfully, and saw that his hands holding the sickle handle showed an extremely irregular twist. As the sword light approached, the skin on his wrist watched quickly a terrifying blood red oozes out, and then the pink flesh is turned out, as if being continuously cut by something invisible, and finally even the bones broken into powder are seen. Bang. As the arteries of the wrist were severed, Hidan suddenly ejected 2 blood arrows from his wrist. One of his palms fell obliquely to the ground under the impulse of the blood arrows. After the blood-red sickle lost its support, it was directly pushed by the sword. Immediately, 3 beams of sword light slammed Hidan's body unhindered. Advertisement. Wow. It hurts. Hidan screamed and flew out. His body was directly divided into 3 parts by the powerful sword light in midair, and a rain of blood appeared in the sky. The 3-part body finally slammed on the rock wall behind him severely. A sorrowful blood red stained the stone wall. It looks like it was killed. It is absolutely impossible for a normal person to survive such a strong attack. However, when I saw that Hidan was attacked by the sword light, Azumi's face appeared so tired that it was difficult to even raise his eyelids. There was a deep disappointment. Kwanmei was not in such a state of exhaustion at the beginning, but was dragged into such a state by a few inexplicable guys. She finally traced the trace of the rebellion, and found that it was a trap designed by an unknown force. When I wanted to get away, I found that there was a very strong barrier around him, and it was only possible to break the barrier after defeating the enemy. As a result, I struggled for a long time. The opponent didn't know what purpose he was holding, and he didn't feel the intention to kill at all during the fight. It seemed that he wanted to trap her here and not let her go. Although she is strong, the opponent is not weak, and it seems that she has been very detailed. Investigations of her have been focusing on her weakness and consuming her stamina. In the end, her stamina was consumed by half. When the situation was getting worse and worse, when she hesitated whether to use the summoning beast to ask Iruka for help, these 2 guys wearing strange cloaks suddenly appeared, and the surnamed person said that she would use her body to exchange money. And the group of people who had besieged her died in the instant they fought with the 2 of them. The remaining man and woman fled immediately, and in the end only Kwanmei, who was the target, dealt with it alone. Hidan's strength is not a threat to Quan Mi, but he has a very strange characteristic: immortality. This is after Quan Mi cut off Hidan's right leg, and saw Hidan's companion casually help him with his leg. He took it back, and then he came to the conclusion from the phenomenon of being like a okay person. Of course, even so, Izumi didn't care much about Hidan. What she really cared about was the guy who killed the ninja who had besieged him just now and could easily resolve her basic sword skills. Can't win, absolutely can't win. Izumi judged the situation in an instant, so she decisively chose to escape after seeing Hidan take her right leg back, and summoned the summoning beast to ask for help during the escape. Fortunately, she was best at physical skills. The stamina is relatively abundant, so although they can't get rid of the two, it also dragged on for a long time. After running for half a day, her stamina gradually depleted. The blow just now was the move she used to overdraw her life, and it was also her last whole card now. However, this whole card. Hey, Kakuzu, hurry up and help me get back to the original state, damn it. It turned me into this, I must use the highest ceremony to dedicate her to Lord Cthulhu. With no effect at all, Hidan's head was lying on the ground and yelling strangely. Shut up. Kakuzu stretched out his hand impatiently, and then his hand suddenly bulged. The next moment, a large group of black thin lines flew out, covering the entire body of Hidan, and two thin lines flew out at the same time. Picked up a pair of bloody palms not far away. With a hissing, interlaced rubbing sound, not long after, Hidan stood up while rubbing his neck, and then walked towards Quan Mei, who had completely lost his ability to resist, with a look of excitement. It's finally about to begin, Lord Cthulhu, this time it is the best sacrifice ever, jayahahaha. Walking to the desperate face of Izumi, Hidan didn't immediately pierce Izumi's heart with the long black cone in his hand, but suddenly bent down, stretched out his hand and got some blood from the ground, and then passed the blood to Vice Admiral in Izumi's disgusting eyes. At the edge of the mouth, slowly stick out his tongue. Izumi is too lazy to think about why this guy is doing such a disgusting thing, but at this time, her mind is full of unwillingness and regret because she is about to lose the opportunity to convey her heart. Damn it, so unwilling. Obviously there is only a tangible distance from him, but because of boring reservations, I missed so many opportunities. If I can survive this time, I will definitely. Single quote. Thinking of this, Quan Mi's strength did not know where it came from, and a strong resentment appeared on her pretty face as if she was back to light. Ms. Iruka, you didn't come to save me for so long, hate you to death. With a very unwilling voice resounding throughout the valley, the echoes are endless, as if trying to break through the fog and pass this unwilling call to someone's ear, and when I hear a familiar name in Quan Mei's words, Kakuzu, who hadn't done much, suddenly frowned. And just as Kakuzu thought, Izumi exhausted the last bit of strength, and Hidan's tongue was about to lick the blood in his hands. Shout, am I here? A tired voice sounded while lazily. The next moment, Hidan hadn't realized what was going on. Suddenly he felt a huge force coming from his stomach, as if he had been hit by a heavy object, followed by his body. He flew back uncontrollably, and the huge momentum smashed the stone wall out of a big hole. The rubble suddenly fell down, burying Hidan's body completely. Chapter 165 I Hate You. I used the force field to perceive and explore the current situation of Izumi, and felt that Izumi was not a major problem except for physical exhaustion, and Iruka suddenly sighed with relief. Fortunately, I caught up. The spirit relaxed a little, and the dizziness caused by the physical load caused by the high-speed and long-distance flight suddenly surged up, but even so, except for the obvious tiredness on Iruka's face, it did not waver, as if he was facing something other than the strong man who can push Quan Mi to this level is like two ordinary people without threats. Huh. Iruka sighed and stood up slowly, with her back to her eyes closed slightly, her face filled with a peaceful smile. Izumi, who completely lost consciousness, face to face not far away. The solemn Kakuzu. Although I don't know the cause and effect, nor the reason for your actions, I promised someone to protect this guy all the time, so. Iruka slowly raised her hand, palm facing Kakuzu, the corner of her mouth raised slightly, revealing a playful smile. I can't ignore potential threats. When the words were over, a light blue light suddenly appeared in Iruka's palm. Click. Following Iruka's actions, countless small cracks suddenly appeared on the surface around Kakuzu. Upon seeing this, he, who had extremely rich combat experience, immediately sealed the seal without hesitation, and finally slapped his hands together. Earth style, Earth spear. The skin on Kakuzu's face suddenly turned black. At the same time, as the cracks around Kakuzu's body spread, it gradually evolved into several wide cracks, dividing the entire land into several parts, and then countless black lights suddenly lost from the cracks at a speed of 360 degrees. Flew towards Kakuzu without any blind spots. Ding 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 ding. Countless sharp points of black light slammed Kakuzu's body, but the strange thing is that all the black light hits, and what it emits is not a puff sound of a sharp knife into the flesh, but like the sound of a fierce metal clash. And until the end, no black light pierced Kakuzu's body. All the black light bounced off Kakuzu's body and fell to the ground feebly. Kakuzu's body was unscathed except that the special cloak was damaged a lot, and until at this time, the true colors of those black lights were completely revealed. Poor scar face, and these kunai made temporarily with the iron contained in the underground, the ninjutsu that can control the earth without the need for seals. Sure enough, this guy is the young man who almost killed Orochimaru 5 years ago people. Single quote. The black on Kakuzu's face gradually receded, slowly returning to a normal skin color, but at this time his face no longer had the calmness of facing Izumi, some of them were just facing the same level, or the solemnity of a strong person of unknown level. Boom! A loud noise suddenly appeared behind Kakuzu, as if there was an explosion. Dozens of rocks scattered around, and then a bewildered figure slowly walked out of the pile of rocks, rubbing the waist that had been hit before. At the same time, he looked at Iruka with resentment. Damn it! How dare you stop praying to Lord Cthulhu? Unforgivable. After that, Hidan gave a strange cry, and then rushed towards Iruka regardless of his injuries. I want to issue God's sanctions to you. Upon seeing this, Kakuzu's face suddenly changed. Idiot, don't be impulsive. Advertisement. Hidan eagerly wanted to turn Iruka into a sacrifice, but completely ignored Kakuzu's reminder. During the rush, he slightly hooked his foot and held the blood-red three-edged sickle on the ground in his hand, and then he slammed his body. Leaping high, the huge sickle slammed down at Iruka. Become the sacrifice of Lord Cthulhu. Iruka looked up indifferently and looked at Hidan, who was full of fanaticism. Although my weakness is indeed that physical skills are correct, but... Single quote. The corners of Wei Yang's mouth suddenly showed disdain. With only this level of physical skill, I dare to rush over. I have to say, you really are. Click. Suddenly numerous cracks appeared on the surface of the rock wall behind Iruka, and several thorns made of hard rock suddenly emerged from the cracks at a very fast speed. The next moment, only a few sounds of chi-chi-chi-chi were heard. Hidan's. The body is so still in the air. Stupid enough. Tick to tick. Bright red blood dripped from Hidan's chest and soon stained a small piece of ground underneath. From Kakuzu's perspective, Hidan's back, limbs, and neck were all stained with blood. The stone thorns penetrated, and the whole person was nailed and hung in the air like a sausage, completely immobile. Damn it, you said don't act rashly, that idiot. Hidan didn't seem to expect that he would be killed so easily. His entire face was as if dead, without any color. The sickle in his hand dropped gently, and then Iruka caught it and held it in his hand. Rubbish. Iruka curled his mouth, and then threw the sickle in his hand at Hidan, who seemed to be dead in midair. However, the sickle, which seemed to be thrown out like trash, suddenly accelerated after leaving Iruka's palm. It hit Hidan's chest like a cannonball. Bang! Hidan's body hit by the sickle instantly escaped from the stone thorn, and flew towards Kakuzu like a kite with a broken line. Several blood arrows spewed out of the place where it was pierced in midair. However, Kakuzu who saw this scene did not feel angry or nervous at all because of the killing of his companion, but was extremely unusually relieved. It seems that it doesn't matter as long as Hidan's body does not fall into Iruka's hands. Iruka noticed the unusual complexion on Kakuzu's face, and suddenly felt a little strange. With so many deadly attacks, even he cannot survive. It should be said that as long as it is a normal person, it is impossible to survive, but Kakuzu's reaction is really weird. It is not like losing his companions or losing the number advantage. The reaction of a ninja with a reduced chance of winning. It hurts, damn it. As if to confuse Iruka, Hidan, who was impossible to survive in his eyes, stood up tremblingly. Although his entire body was stained red with blood, there was no pain except pain on his face. A faint color that should be when you lose your life. Oh, immortal. It's kind of interesting. After easily drawing a conclusion, Iruka looked at Hidan with a miserable appearance with great interest, suddenly raised his hand, a light blue light flashed, and the next moment, the place where several blood-stained stone thorns connected to the stone wall suddenly with a crack. It broke apart, and then with Iruka's big hand wave, all the stone thorns seemed to have come to life, with a sharp wind-breaking sound at a very fast speed. Although they could stand up, they lost too much blood for a while. Hidan, who could not control his body freely, flew away. Chapter 166 The Immortal Body. Seeing the oncoming stone thorns, Hidan, who had not recovered his body, couldn't avoid it, but he didn't panic at all, and he didn't even plan to evade. Because, for him, this kind of external attack is meaningless to his immortal body. Even if his hands, feet or even his head are severed, as long as Kakuzu is there, he can regain his fighting power in a short time. However, he doesn't care, but it doesn't mean that others don't care. Click. The angle suddenly appeared next to Hidan, and then he suddenly bent down, pressing his hands on the ground quickly. Chakra rushed into the ground quickly, and ninjutsu suddenly activated. Earth style, earth flow wall. Boom boom boom. A huge earth wall suddenly stood up and lay in front of the two of them, and then only a few, bang bang bang, sounds were heard, and several long and narrow cracks appeared on the heavy soil wall in front of them. And then a ring of cracks suddenly appeared in the center of the crack. Not good. Kakuzu's face was startled, and then he grabbed Hidan's collar decisively, and slammed his feet, leading Hidan back towards him. Boom. The two of them had just retreated. The surface of the earth wall of the earth flow wall was instantly covered with circular cracks that spread, and then collapsed in a loud noise, and then only a few ochre rays flashed by. They were standing originally. The place was instantly filled with dozens of long soil guns, and the extremely strong force even cracked the surrounding ground, spreading cracks several meters long. It is conceivable that if Kakuzu didn't run away immediately, the two of them would definitely be pricked into hedgehogs by those terrifying spears. Hidan doesn't matter, but Kakuzu doesn't have Hidan's pervert immortal body, and if you don't die, you have to lose your skin. The power of this guy's technique is beyond imagination, and he can't even stop the earth flow wall. Hello, Kakuzu, what are you doing? Do you think that technique can kill me? Hidan was very dissatisfied and complained. After this short buffer, he has regained some mobility. Obviously, as long as he is not severed or cut off the head, his immortality can quickly restore his combat effectiveness. Even if you can't kill, it can make you completely immobile. If you are bound, you will be no different from a dead person. That guy is not as idiot as you. Knowing that it is invalid, he wasted chakra using ninjutsu on you. His plan is definitely. Kakuzu said in a dull tone, but before he finished speaking, he suddenly heard a slight breaking sound not far away, immediately stopped the conversation without hesitation, and leaned back with his feeling. For a moment, I saw 3 earth guns pierce through the broken dust of the earth flow wall and flew straight to Kakuzu, who was leaning back, and finally flew past Kakuzu's erected collar, and slammed into the rock wall behind him. Superior. Strong reaction nerve, grasp of the battle situation, calm head, quick skill, tusk. The dust swaying from the wall of the earth stream dissipated completely in a sudden gust of wind, and then I saw Iruka holding his hands flat, bending slightly forward and appearing in front of Kakuzu and Hidan in a standard offensive posture. Although his faces were tired, but what's more is that even at the disadvantage of one enemy too, he still has plenty of confidence and looks directly at Kakuzu. It's no wonder that I can force Izumi to this way. I said, how could the brain dead with nothing but the immortal body be Izumi's opponent? It turns out that you are the really tricky guy. He has completely ignored Hidan in words. To be honest, based on Hidan's reckless actions just now, even if he doesn't know what skills he possesses, Iruka doesn't take him seriously. Advertisement. Damn it, this guy dare to look down on me. Hey, Kakuzu, let's join hands. Don't you say that the woman named Uchiha Izumi is very valuable. If you want to earn that money, you have to get rid of this stinky guy. Hidan was full of anger and looked at Iruka bitterly. However, since Iruka had easily subdued him just now, he has now realized that he may not even be able to touch Iruka's clothes Kakuzu on his own, so he has not been as direct as before. He rushed over, but proposed to Kakuzu to cooperate. In his opinion, as long as he joins forces with Kakuzu, no matter how strong Iruka is, he can only tie them at best. Injuries will be inevitable at that time, and as long as there is a wound, he will get a trace of blood. Thinking of this, Hidan became excited, but the next moment, Kakuzu poured cold water on him with a gloomy expression. I have already given up the money. Hidan was astonished as if he had heard something incredible. Kakuzu ignored him. When he stared at him, he could clearly feel Iruka who was refining chakra. Then he suddenly bent down. The next moment, he saw his back squirming suddenly. He got up, and then 3 huge black shadows wearing various masks, all in darkness suddenly broke through the great cloak, flew out of his back, and finally stood firmly in front of them. Those are 3 monsters that seem to be composed of countless black lines. Even when standing, their bodies are shaking slightly. It seems to be the inevitable shaking caused by the interlacing of lines and lines. After the 3 monsters appeared, Kakuzu quickly makes seals with both hands while continuing to say. That guy is very strong. 5 years ago, he fought against the group of Sasori and Orochimaru, and they were almost killed. I don't think your ability is comparable to that of Sasori and Orochimaru. Although I am strong, you are too weak. Even if we join forces, it is impossible to be that guy's opponent, so what we have to do now is not to kill him. With the completion of the last seal, a powerful chakra suddenly emerged from the 3 monsters at the same time, which was completely connected to the chakra on Kakuzu. Then, Kakuzu's eyes suddenly condensed, and the mouth of the red mask and the blue mask suddenly appeared. Opened, ninjutsu suddenly launched. Fire style, work hard. Infiltrating the nature of the wind and the nature of fire, chakra's change of powerful ninjutsu was suddenly launched. The next moment, a monstrous fire wave with a strong impact, with an aura that seemed to annihilate everything, swept towards Iruka. Facing the fire waves that seemed to be able to disperse the night completely, even standing at this distance could feel the burning sensation, Iruka's face was still unshakable under the dazzling firelight, and there was no plan to avoid it. His hands continued to compare. Naruto can't get much faster than the printing speed. Tisk tusk, this power is about to catch up with the blast of the masked man, the rare and powerful fire style, but compared with my technique. Iruka was even calm enough to comment on Kakuzu's fire style like a bystander. When the last seal was completed, the corner of his mouth was slightly hooked, revealing a playful smile. It's still too far. Chakra gathered in her mouth frantically. Iruka suddenly raised her chest, and at the same time controlled the power field, carefully controlling the direction of chakra's flow. When everything was ready, Iruka suddenly opened her abdomen, and the chakra gathered in her mouth instantly spit out. Fire style. Haoyan Purgatory. The golden fire wave that once completely destroyed Bai's strongest defense and turned the surrounding material into coke suddenly ejected from Iruka's mouth. The great impact plus the extremely high temperature golden fire that can cause the air to vibrate violently, the wave slammed into the hard red fire wave on the head, and immediately produced a violent explosion. The violent energy swept everything in the surrounding area, and this valley almost instantly turned into a sea of fire. Boom 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 boom. In the successive explosions, the golden fire wave was unstoppable and annihilated the red fire wave, and Kakuzu and Hidan were completely annihilated in it at a very fast speed. Chapter 167, Ninjutsu Confrontation Without Suspense. Just like the time in the country of Nami, the place swept by the golden fire wave of the Haoyan Purgatory turned into a piece of coke, and wisps of black smoke rose slowly from the cracks in the stone, and a strong burnt smell filled the air. There is a sharp contrast between the surface of Iruka before and after. The front is the scorched earth that can rub off the surface carbon layer by just stepping on it, and the back is the earthy yellow land where Izumi is lying. Looking at the two corpses lying quietly not far away that seemed to be completely carbonized, Iruka slowly lowered his hands, but did not solve the enemy's slackness on his face, but suddenly turned his head and looked at a rock several meters high to the side. Rock Shinobi technique. Tisk tisk, fire, wind, and soil, 3 types of chakra nature transformation, as well as the technique that can create monsters that don't know what they have. Sure enough, you are much stronger than the brain damage with the sickle. You can only fight in this way. Interesting. Click. The surface of the rock that Iruka was watching suddenly became blurred. The next moment, unharmed Kakuzu and 3 black monsters appeared in front of Iruka out of thin air, and then one of the 2 charred corpses lying quietly on the ground. Suddenly a bang disappeared into the air, and the other shook his body vigorously. After shaking off the carbonized part of his body, he got up directly. The tall body was almost completely scrapped except for the clothes, but it was not in the fire. A little bit of trauma was left under the ravages. Hey, Kakuzu, the sneak attack plan you just mentioned is completely useless. Kakuzu and the 3 black monsters appeared next to Hidan. Hearing his complaint, Kakuzu's eyes suddenly cold. It was impossible to succeed at first. It was just a test of the guy's abilities. Since I met the guy named by the leader, collecting intelligence has become one of our jobs, so keep it for me, you idiot. As he said, Kakuzu raised his hand and moved his fingers quickly. Following his movements, a burst of strong chakra burst out of the 3 black monsters standing in front of them, and then rushed towards Iruka at the same time. Listen well, don't think about killing that guy. He is too strong. We have no chance of winning. What we have to do now is to collect his intelligence and look for opportunities to retreat. If you are reckless and caught by that guy, don't blame me for leaving you to run away alone. Whispering sound. Hidan curled his lips, but he didn't refute Kakuzu's words. Instead, he raised the sickle in his hand and slammed it hard. The next moment, the handle of the sickle he was holding in his hand suddenly became longer, like a long one. The whip generally swept towards Iruka quickly. Upon seeing this, Iruka immediately raised his hand, and then only a few cracking sounds were heard, and the stone wall behind him surging again. Not long after, countless black lights and khaki rays suddenly shot through the cracks. Then, in midair, the 2 rays of light quickly turned into a torrent of intertwined torrents, rushing towards the 3 black monsters. Wind style. Suppress. Kakuzu folded his hands together, and then saw that the blue mask on the face of the black monster, the only one of the 3 monsters flying in the air, suddenly opened. The next moment, an extremely powerful airflow suddenly spouted from the mouth of the mask, fiercely. Hit the front of the torrent of yellow and black. Bang bang bang. The whistling sound of the violent wind and countless crisp clashes mixed together, making the midair extremely noisy. Countless yellow and black lights flew around, and when they touched stone walls, ground, rocks, etc., the huge energy contained in them suddenly it exploded, destroying all the materials it encountered. In less than 2 breaths, the ground that had already turned into scorched earth and everything around was once again devastated. Numerous rubbles were bombarded into the air, and then instantly turned into dust within the scope of Wind Style's operation, and the dust followed the direction of the airflow. Cover the entire sky completely. The sickle thrown by Hidan plunged into the ground under the bombardment of the scattered black light. His attack was completely unnecessary, which also proved that Iruka's judgment was correct. He was a total waste in this level of confrontation. With his immortality, he can only frighten those ninjas who have never seen the world before. For the real strong, he has almost no threat. Only Kakuzu, an almost versatile ninja, can arouse Iruka's interest. As for Hidan, he doesn't even pay more attention. Advertisement. Good Wind Style. But since it is Wind Style. Looking at the 2 energies still fighting fiercely in midair, Iruka murmured, and then her fingers changed rapidly. Zi Yin Shu Chou Mao Yin, Fire Style. When the last seal was completed, chakra gathered in his mouth at the same time, Iruka took a deep breath, and then the sea-level ninjutsu, which seemed to be just a test, was instantly activated. Phoenix Fire Technique. More than a dozen fireballs with a diameter of half a meter flew out of Iruka's mouth one after another, quickly and continuously released in midair. Chakra maintained the wind-style blue mask monster and flew away. This is Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique. Why is it different from what I have seen before? Hidan pulled back the sickle buried in the stone burrow, and looked at the dozen or so fireballs flying towards the wind-style monster in confusion. Unlike him who was just curious but didn't pay attention to it, Kakuzu suddenly remembered something, his face looked confused. Suddenly changed. Not good. Sasori's description of Iruka versus Orochimaru came to mind, especially when I recalled Sasori talking about Iruka's weird scene when Iruka was using sea-level ninjutsu. Kakuzu immediately stopped Kakuzu without hesitation and gave up using the other 2 fire styles. With the lightning-style monster's plan to stop the Phoenix Fire Technique, he directly manipulated the 3 monsters to disperse and retreat at the same time. Boom 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 boom. More than a dozen fireballs flew into the wind-style range before they could disperse, and exploded suddenly under the influence of the squeezing of wind-style in all directions and the effect of interlaced airflow. The wind assisted the fire, making the fireball explosion more powerful than usual. It doubled, and the entire sky was instantly dyed red by the skyrocketing fire. Deafening explosions resounded throughout the valley from top to bottom. The violent energy caused the surrounding walls to pop and bang, to break apart, forming countless falling rocks smashed down severely. Although Kakuzu's reaction was already fast, the 3 masked monsters were still crushed by the shock wave of the explosion. When they were about to struggle to stand up, they were hit by the falling rock again. It took less than 2 breaths. It was completely buried in the huge stone burial piled up by falling rocks. But the rock that fell on Iruka and Izumi's head was strangely stopped in the air, floating quietly, and then as Iruka raised his hand, a light blue light flashed across the palm suddenly, all suspended in midair. Luoshi suddenly flew towards Kakuzu and Hidan not far away with the sound of swish. This kind of relatively small space is my home court. I actually chose to play against me in this kind of place. Should you say that you are ignorant or? The corner of Iruka's mouth raised slightly, revealing a touch of playfulness, and then he suddenly lifted his foot and slammed his foot on the ground. Unfortunate. Mystery. Rock burst. Click. With the activation of his unique ability, the ground in front of Iruka suddenly trembled violently, and then, with countless cracks, a large piece of earthy yellow ground exuding cold light pierced out in front of him, starting from his feet. The ground thorns in the front are advancing fast, and new ground thorns are constantly produced in the back. In just 2 breaths, the countless thorns have completely turned into a large surging wave, frantically swept toward Kakuzu and Hidan. Chapter 168. Boom 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 boom. Under the double spur of the rocky spurs on the ground and the countless rocks that almost completely cover the sky, no matter how hard Kakuzu forces himself to calm down and think, the final conclusion is exactly the same. There is no chance to escape. Using rock shinobi technique to dive into the rocks is not only time lagging, even if you can catch up, it is impossible to deceive the opponent's eyes if you launch ninjutsu under the eyes of enemies of the same level or stronger than yourself. In the end, he can only become a living target in the rock. Let Iruka lash out. No solution anymore. Kakuzu sighed helplessly, and then stopped hesitating, and took out a scroll that Iruka was familiar with. That is, Iruka murmured suspiciously. The next moment, it suddenly appeared in his mind that 5 years ago, when the 2 men who wore the same big cloaks were planning to escape, the man with a rickety figure looked like this kind of scroll. Thinking of this, Iruka was shocked. FK, isn't it? However, as if to confirm his guess, after Kakuzu unwrapped the scroll, the half of the scroll that slid out of the scroll was clearly written with an ink-colored big character, Shun. When he saw that character, Iruka felt as if he was trampled by 10,000 grass and mud horses, and was so depressed that he wanted to hit the wall. However, no matter how depressed he is, reality will not change. Bang! Both Kakuzu and Hidan turned into a white smoke at the same time, completely disappearing into the air, and when they disappeared, countless rocks and rock spurs instantly completely covered the place where they were standing. 1 second. 1 second away. It only takes 1 second for Iruka to bury the 2 alive with the falling rocks and rock spurs containing his own chakra, and then use the chakra above to launch another secret technique, rock binding hearing, even if they have a way to deal with rock spurs and spurs. It is absolutely impossible for falling rocks to survive in the rock binding that can grind hard metal into powder. If Kakuzu hesitated for another second, if Iruka's technique could be another second faster. It's a pity that this world has no ifs. When Iruka released his force field perception to completely cover the area within a kilometer, but still couldn't perceive the third creature besides Izumi and himself, he suddenly sighed depressed. It's rare to want to take a serious shot once, but in the end, I can only watch the prey that is about to be handed fly away. These guys wearing the red cloud cloak on the black background are so good at escaping from Mao. Shaking his head, Iruka threw away the chaotic thoughts. After sorting out his mood, he turned around and prepared to take Kwanmei back to the village. However, when his gaze shifted to the pretty face of Izumi, whose back was leaning against the stone wall, which was full of rare colors of peace and tranquility, Iruka was stunned for some reason. I spent 5 years together. Except for the period when Kwanmei was in a state of extreme confusion, the impression that Kwanmei gave him was naughty and poisonous, and would quarrel with herself whenever he had the opportunity. In short, as long as he was on the sidelines, Kwanmei basically wouldn't when there are quiet times, they will always change their way to find the topic, and then they will either mock each other or despise each other, but they will not be boring daily routines at all. Thanks to this, Iruka has not had much sense of belonging to this world of ninja, which is full of hatred and chains of hatred and tragedies all the time in the past 5 years, but he does not hate this world. Although I don't want to admit it, Iruka can clearly realize that he is no longer the solitary person he had when he first came to this world. Of course, it was not Naruto and Sasuke that brought him this idea to the 9 Irukas who devoted themselves to nurturing him. Of students, after all, it was a purposeful plan, not an action based purely on their own instincts. The real reason is neither because of a bad encounter, the crescent moon that allows him to talk naturally with the second meeting, nor the calamus, who is not like Mengin, nor the old man of 3rd generation. Kakashi and Ebisu, the 2 Mensti men, are Izumi Mi who has been with him almost day and night for 5 years. Advertisement. Human beings are such a creature, and repetitive things will become habit. When the habit becomes natural, that kind of thing will unknowingly become an indispensable part of that person's heart. At the beginning of each day, the first person I see is basically Izumi. I am used to quarreling with her, accustomed to her delicious cooking, and accustomed to her occasional waywardness. When this habit may be lost, Iruka will subconsciously behave. Acting to protect this habit is not because of a deal he said just now and promised Crescent Moon to protect Izumi all the time, but his instinctive action. This is the second time, right? Huh. After recovering, Iruka murmured softly, using the ability to divide and manipulate a slate on the ground to levitate, and then bend down, put her hands on the back of Izumi's neck and waist, and hug her in a princess hug, but she doesn't know. Why? He didn't immediately put Kwanmei's body on the stone slab, but looked at Kwanmei's peaceful sleep with a misty look. The first time I realized that Izumi had a place in her heart was when she was promoted to Jonin, when she met Bai and did not cut her on a mission, and finally was frozen by Bai's blood, and the cold eroded her internal organs and was sent back to the village dying. Being lazy by nature, he was uncharacteristically looking everywhere for a cure, and after finding it, he went all over the world to search for the medicinal materials he needed. When he recovered, he realized that he was taking the initiative to run for a person. It has nothing to do with interests, and has nothing to do with any plan, purpose, or other realistic things. It is purely instinctive actions that reflect the truest thoughts in the heart. But this time, when I saw Izumi's peaceful sleeping face, which was the opposite of the pretty face full of energetic, exhausted and full of peace of mind, he once again awakened a place deep in his heart that he subconsciously did not want to touch. A sense of peace of mind. Iruka cautiously placed Kwanme on the stone slab, and then suddenly stretched out his hand and gently pushed the hair away from Kwanme's face. He didn't know why he did this. He always disliked Kwanme for sticking over regardless of men's and women's defenses. This time they took the initiative to narrow the distance between each other. The distance between each other's bodies, and the distance between each other's hearts. It seems that the continuation of the terrible bathhouse incident 5 years ago is not all a bad thing, haha. Iruka chuckled slightly, and after removing the hair from Izumi's face, he slowly withdrew his hand, said softly. For the past 5 years, I have really troubled you. It is really hard to take care of people like me. The red woman always says that you are sad or something, should I mean this? Being taken care of, and at the same time instinctively wanting to protect the person who takes care of herself, Iruka, who has never experienced family affection in her previous life, feels that this should be the so-called feeling of family. The so-called siblings should be like this, right? It's just that Iruka's heart suddenly became tense when he thought of this, for no reason. Since it is a younger sister, then, sooner or later there will be a man who is attracted by her energetic smile and will do everything for her, and at the same time be able to attract her, right? And at that time, Izumi, who is in love, has no blood relationship with herself, just the formal affection will completely dissipate, right? Thinking is floating everywhere as always, but unlike the usual thinking that drifts to meaningless places, this time I am thinking about things that I would never think about, but I can't ignore it. Iruka's hand that was slowly retracting suddenly froze in the air, shaking slightly. Then, he suddenly heard a voice that didn't know how many emotions it contained. Ms. Iruka, can you explain why I saw your fingers less than 2 centimeters from my chest as soon as I opened my eyes? You really want to put your hands on me while I am unconscious, right? But you seem to be lustful. I'm not guilty. I hesitated for a full minute. I really can't see it, mister. Iruka is so courageous. Hearing these words, Iruka's mind suddenly went blank. All the things he was thinking about disappeared without a trace, and then he raised his head mechanically. The next moment, after he recovered, he saw Kwanme's pretty face filled with a meaningful smile, and those big moving eyes seemed to say to him, "You're done." Iruka's lacrimal gland, surely, collapsed. Chapter 169 Family. Nah, Mr. Iruka, it's almost time to talk about compensation, right? I do not understand what you're saying. Iruka lays his hands on the back of his head, lying on the stone slab in flight, breathing the fresh morning air, while gazing quietly at the boundless sky above. His face is full of contemplation, as if thinking about the future of mankind. Great questions like where to go. Beside him, Kwanme, who had recovered some strength, put her hands on the stone slab backwards, and then pursed her mouth. His large moving eyes flashed with playful light. Speaking of it, it's not the first time that Mr. Iruka has tried to commit a crime against me. When I was in the Kingdom of Stone, in the morning a month ago, plus this time, there were a total of 3 times. Little is not interested in me, but sure enough, you have paid attention to my feminine aspect too, hee. Hey, how can an adult be interested in a little girl? There must be a limit to excess self-awareness. Iruka curled her mouth, then turned sideways, turning her back to Izumi. To be honest, if he only follows the instinct of a man, even he dare not say that he has no reaction to Izumi. After all, Izumi's figure is not as good as the 16-year-old Crescent, but it can also eclipse many normally developed women. The existence of, especially the bottom-up angle just now. But it is the beast that only follows the instinct, and the reason why people are human is because they have feelings called intellect that bind their actions. I'm 18 years old, not a little girl anymore. For me, those who are 2 years younger than me are little girls. Iruka naturally perfused Izumi's words, but he didn't notice that it was the first time Izumi had mentioned his age to him so formally. The deviation is 2 years old. Oh, it really is like this. Kwanme sighed quietly, a frustration flashed across her face, but the frustration only lasted for less than a second, and was replaced by unshakable determination. She raised her hand, clenched her fist hard, as if she was cheering for herself, took a deep breath, and after exhaling, her face returned to its former naturalness. In short, compensation is necessary, although it is only an attempted indecency. Stop it. Hearing the term, insignificant attempt, that seemed to put some kind of unpleasant label on his whole person, Iruka suddenly couldn't calm down. He sat up, heavy, and sat upright opposite Izumi, with a serious look on his face. Looked at her. You can eat rice indiscriminately, but you can't talk nonsense. Izumi, the word obscene is absolutely impossible to associate with a glorious ninja teacher like me. You can't subjectively define me like this just because of 1 or 2 misunderstandings. Do you know it is called slander? Hey, misunderstanding. There will be misunderstandings of putting hands on girls' chests twice in the world. Izumi put her hands around her knees and looked at Iruka with an inexplicable smile. Ms. Iruka, is it possible? Do you think my hair is blonde? Do you think Naruto's suit will work for me? Looking at her with straight gaze, Iruka, who can always maintain a calm mind when facing Izumi Mi, has a somewhat erratic look at this time. At this time, he can no longer care about Naruto's name and will be stupid. It's a trivial question like the equal sign. Iruka coughed slightly awkwardly. Believe it or not, I think it was a misunderstanding anyway, so there is no need for compensation. Izumi wanted to say more, but Iruka decisively raised her hand and interrupted her. Advertisement. Compared to this indifferent thing, how is your mission going? What's the matter with those two guys who attacked you? Although Iruka's technique of changing the topic is as bad as ever, what he said is indeed the business, and Izumi can only pouting, expressing his dissatisfaction with the interruption of the topic that he wants to continue. That guy is dead. Although I didn't kill it, I can count on completing the task. As for the two guys in the greed cloak, they seem to be bounty hunters. Go to the underground exchange to exchange money. Hearing this, Iruka frowned slightly, and then asked about the situation carefully. When I heard Kwanmei said that she was trapped by a group of people at first, but the other party didn't seem to have much malice towards her, just when trying to trap her there, a vague idea came to Iruka's mind. Kwanmei, the group of people who designed the trap to Bessie you really didn't kill you. Iruka confirmed what to ask, and when he heard this, Izumi gave Iruka a blank look, and was a little dissatisfied with his suspicious tone. Iruka teacher, although my strength is not comparable to you, I am also Jonin, who is good at physical skills. Even if Sharingan's insight is not as good as Sakura's ultra-dynamic vision, he won't even be able to see the severity of the enemy's shots, right? This way. Izumi's answer made the thoughts in Iruka's mind gradually clear. I saw him ponder for a while and asked some details of the time. Although Izumi wondered why Iruka, who had always been lazy, would suddenly care about this mission, she was still patient. Answered Iruka's question. As for the ninja's mission secrecy regulations, when facing Iruka, how can Izumi take care of those indifferent things? If you just want to trap you, there is no need to show up. You only need to set up barriers that cannot be broken from the inside, and they have only two goals for their actions. One is to capture you directly, and the other is yes. Speaking of this, Iruka suddenly remembered that Crescent Moon would not come back sooner or later, but came back when Izumi was on the mission, and she came back just when Naruto, Sasuke and Jr. Sakura were attacked by Orochimaru. At this time, it's a bit subtle. The most suspicious thing is the strength of Orochimaru. Even if all the members of the 7th squad teamed up, they would not be able to fight. After all, they are still too young. Orochimaru is much stronger than them in terms of combat experience and strength. If it is for Sasuke, it is impossible to take the initiative to retreat when he has the advantage. When he arrived, there was no Orochimaru half-person in the coverage area of Liefield's perception. In other words, he got the news ahead of time and ran away, and he knew that he was rushing over with the refractive technique, only one person. Hey, I said, Mr. Iruka, when did you develop the bad habit of hanging your appetite? What is the other one? Seeing Iruka hadn't spoken for a long time, Izumi murmured in dissatisfaction. I just finished speaking, but before Iruka could answer, Izumi felt that the slate under her feet suddenly accelerated. She was unprepared and her body became unstable, and she suddenly rushed into Iruka's arms. Of course it's Tiaohu. Hey, what are you doing? Iruka just wanted to answer. When she raised her head, she saw Kwanmei's face rushing in panic. Fortunately, he reacted quickly enough and directly stretched out his hand on Kwanmei's small shoulder to stabilize her figure. Well, following Izumi's dull murmur, Iruka suddenly smelled a fresh scent, mixed with shampoo and girly body fragrance, a special scent. At the same time, Kwanmei, whose nose tip was less than half a centimeter away from Iruka's chest, suddenly filled with an intoxicating redness. The blush spread quickly, from the cheeks to the base of the ears, and then from behind the ears to the neck. If there is a perspective from the side of the two of them, you can see how the two people's posture at this time looks like a couple in love cuddling together intimately. The pink breath permeates the two of them, and time seems to freeze. Chapter 170. Attempted indecency. Intentionally, it must be intentional. Behind Iruka came a small voice, but the volume that happened to make him heard. He couldn't help but cough twice to cover up the embarrassment caused by the accident caused by the sudden acceleration, and calm his inexplicably restless heart. He took the initiative to speak to Kwanmei. Nah, Izumi. However, as soon as he spoke, Izumi interrupted his speech altogether. Compensate. The simple and easy to understand vocabulary immediately made Iruka's face stiff, maintaining the chakra that allowed the slate to continue to accelerate. Iruka turned his head mechanically, and then he saw Izumi, who still had a little blush on his face, looking straight at herself. It must be compensated, and this time you will never be perfunctory like last time, Mr. Iruka, please be aware of it. Hearing this, I recalled the feeling of being slumped after shopping with Izumi before. Iruka's whole body suddenly became ill, but he was obviously not a person who bowed his head and confessed his life. In any case, he will try to make the last resistance. I really didn't mean it. I thought this level of acceleration could be dealt with your reaction speed. How did I know that you would fall as easily as an ordinary person? In front of you. Izumi's eyes suddenly showed something familiar to Iruka, which made him stunned, and then Izumi's light voice was transmitted into his brain through the tympanic membrane. I will only be an ordinary person, dull, ordinary person without any vigilance. The violent wind that was inevitable under the rapid flight was raging wildly. Although Iruka used his ability to offset most of it, there was still a slight breeze of a slippery fish that blew in through the barrier layer, swinging Iruka slightly like a pair of gentle hands. The long black hair then flew towards Kwanmei through the gaps in the hair as if conveying something indescribable. The long black hair that was put down in a non-combat state swayed back and forth on Kwanmei's impeccably perfect face like a misty veil, rippling with an inexplicable and moving breath. And the heartstrings were touched. In this lonely sky, who else besides Iruka? Iruka knows what that feeling is, because in the previous life, he felt it once in a young girl. The concretization of the soul touch, the trembling from the heart, is the so-called throbbing. Humans' instinctive yearning for beautiful things is an innocent emotion, but for Iruka, the end of this emotion is the cruel and coldest. Betray. In Azumi's eyes shining with a certain expectation, Iruka, who recalled the past, suddenly turned around and faced forward, and then her tone suddenly became indifferent. Grasp firmly. I want to speed up. The village is likely to have something wrong. We must hurry back as soon as possible. Hearing Iruka talking about the extremely urgent situation for her as a Konoha Shinobi, Azumi's face did not show the slightest urgency. For some reason, her face became pale, even a little stiff, not so much I heard the content of Iruka's words, it is better to say that she felt the tone of the words. Kwanmei gritted her teeth. Her body trembled slightly, her face seemed to be holding back something, her tone of voice was trembling. I know. The atmosphere became dull for a while, and I don't know whether Izumi knew about the situation in Iruka's words, or she thought she understood the meaning of Iruka's inexplicable indifferent tone. The answer was completely blurred by the violent whistling sound of the slate flying at high speed. Advertisement. After flying for more than half an hour and only 5 minutes away from the village, neither of them said a word. This dull atmosphere finally made Iruka feel a strange feeling. I thought that after so many years, I didn't care anymore. I didn't expect to think of that guy's affairs under this accidental touch. Sure enough, even if the touch became cold in the end, I couldn't forget it. Iruka shook her head, but it was because Izumi inadvertently said something similar to Umayan, and her calm heart was shaken so violently. I thought that the bloody wound deep in my heart had healed, but now Iruka has I can clearly realize that the scar called betrayal is just a temporary scar. As long as life continues, the memories that I thought I had forgotten will resurface because of the touch caused by accidental trivial things, and the scars on the wound that will never heal will be opened fiercely, and once again feel that it made him tear his heart apart. Pain in the lungs. Being immersed in the past is not Iruka's style. After the memory was selectively dusted again, his hazy face returned to his usual relaxed and comfortable after a deep breath, as if nothing happened in this world to him. Iruka turned his head and looked at Izumi, but the next moment he was stunned. I saw Kwanmei lowered her head and her narrow bangs drooped, covering most of her face. She couldn't see the expression on her face. All she could see was the two shallow lines on her cheeks on both sides, which seemed to reflect traces of her mood at this time. When I noticed Izumi's tightly clenched fists and a small spot of water on her feet, Iruka suddenly understood something, and then he suddenly burst into a bitter smile. That tone of voice just now, it's the first time she saw me like that. Although it was not aimed at her, it was still a bit too much. The previous indifference was just a mental portrayal of recalling a certain memory segment that I wanted to forget, and it had nothing to do with Izumi, but even so, he was undoubtedly the cause of Izumi's sobbing at this moment. Then, what to do was simple. Iruka walked up to Izumi, stretched out his hand and placed it on Izumi's soft hair, rubbing it lightly while feeling the warm touch from the palm of her hand. Sorry, Izumi, I suddenly remembered something unhappy just now, so the way of speaking is a bit weird, don't take it to your heart. I don't know whether it was reacting to Iruka's rather affectionate movements, or was affected by Iruka's rather soft tone. Izumi stopped the sobbing, and then raised her hand to keep rubbing the corner of her eye under the cover of her bangs. I don't know if it was an illusion. Iruka found that Kwanmei was suddenly relieved. Through the gap between her hands, she could even see the looming relief on her face. As if she felt ashamed of her appearance at this time, Izumi suddenly turned around and turned her back to Iruka. Upon seeing this, Iruka couldn't help but smiled gently. Although he realized that he seemed to instinctively care about Izumi's feelings, he did not reject this instinct. By the way, I didn't expect you to cry, I'm pretty knowledgeable. You can control it. Izumi, who adjusted her mood a little, snorted, but Iruka could still hear the tremor in her words, and when she was thinking about how to apologize for her unintentional passing, she suddenly heard that there was something in her. An emotional voice that Iruka can't understand. Compensation. This time, you won't make excuses or change the subject anymore. Teacher Gaihu who likes watching girls cry. Hearing that, Iruka smiled bitterly, but nodded. Well, make up for the compensation, and treat it as an apologize. Hearing these helpless words, the corners of Izumi's mouth with her back to Iruka suddenly raised slightly, and a touching smile appeared on her face.